Chapter 4480. There's still the third talisman. Arbor muttered to herself. A powerful aura seeped out of the talisman that had appeared out of thin air. Ghost descent. Ghost descent talisman. Ghost descent talisman. Luohi's pupils abruptly contracted as he stared uncontrollably at the woman in front of him in shock. What struck them the most was that this stoic face wasn't drawing a ghost descent talisman. She was continuously creating ghost descent talisman after ghost descent talisman. How were they supposed to withstand this? Not to mention the fact that Elder Zhuang had to focus on protecting Miss Xiao Shui because she was unconscious. He also had to continuously channel spirit energy into her to recover her body. Moreover, the average cultivation of these disciples in the City of Shadows was around the 10th level of the spirit realm. How were they supposed to withstand the powerful ghost descent talisman? Run! Run! Luohi shouted harshly. The endless ghost descent talisman that was being created was almost the last straw that broke his nerves. Even his teeth were chattering as he used an extremely terrified voice to warn everyone, run. Now! At the same time, a transportation talisman formation emitting a halo appeared beneath everyone's feet. However, the ghosts summoned by the little stoic were already coming out one after another. Ghastly wails and howls filled the area as dozens of ghosts bared their fangs and brandished their claws and rushed towards the talisman formation. They disappeared from everyone's sight along with the transportation talisman formation. Arbor's lips curled into a frigid sneer. Run then. No matter how they ran, these people could only stay in the Tianji secret realm. As long as the secret realm didn't spit them out, they couldn't leave at all. Jojo. Emolian moved to her side with a worried expression. She pulled her into her arms and patted her twice. Jojo, look at me. Xiaomu looked up at him in confusion and asked with a blink, what is it? Jojo, you're not allowed to think about those unhappy pasts. I didn't. Arbor raised a small claw and raked it through his hair. What? You think I'm acting up again? No. Arbor raised his delicate eyebrows. My mind is clearer than ever. I know who she is. Oh, she must be Mu Qingya's daughter. They're too similar. No wonder the more I look at them, the more I think they look alike. Arbor raised his little head and suddenly chuckled. Chen Kuei is indeed a fool. After all these years, he still hasn't seen Mu Qingya's true colors. She thought that Mu Qingya's youngest daughter really had a miscarriage. From the looks of it, isn't she living well in the City of Shadows? Upon hearing this, Emolian raised his eyebrows. You think that the City of Shadows Mu something Shui? She's actually Mu Qingya's youngest daughter who had a miscarriage? Arbor nodded. Speaking of which, if she hadn't been chatting with Chun Chung that day and accidentally heard about Mu Qingya's second delivery, she really wouldn't have been able to connect the two women. So, it's very likely that the City of Shadows has long been in cahoots with Tianyin. Arbor nodded with a slightly gloomy expression. Very likely. Arbor blinked and held Emolian's hand. He whispered softly, Mu Qingya, that bitch, always wants to control the overall situation and other people's lives. She doesn't want me to have a good life. Should I reciprocate? Chapter 4481. Then I'd like to see what kind of interesting reaction she'll have if it's her own daughter who's being manipulated. Emolian's warm hand wrapped around hers. Jojo, Elder Zhuang beside her, is a late-stage, venerable immortal. Don't go up against him alone. Xiaomu stroked the white snakelet that had returned to hibernating on her wrist and nodded. I know. He could withstand 3 fierce attacks from the little white snake, so he must be a transcendent, immortal expert. Mu Qingya must have valued her daughter very much. Otherwise, she wouldn't have found a late-stage, venerable, immortal expert to protect her. Take a guess, husband. If she saw her daughter's fate being controlled by someone else and her body withering away, would she go crazy? Emolian sneered. She's such a cold woman. How could she worry about her children? Just look at her attitude towards Muro, and you should know. She's a heartless and selfish woman. She's different from your mother and all the normal mothers in the world. You can't use the standard of an ordinary mother to think of this woman, or you'll inevitably suffer. Arbor felt that the Crown Prince's analysis was very correct and quickly nodded. I know. Then it's probably useless to torture Mu Xiaoxue. She won't feel sorry for her at all. The crown prince's eyes were cold as he held her in his arms and looked at the teleportation array in the distance where Mu Xiaoxue and the others had escaped. These people have a lot to do with the higher-ups of Tianyan. We'll get rid of them as soon as we see them. It's considered getting rid of evil for the people. Arbor nodded. He originally wanted to play with Mu Xiaoxue, but most of his thoughts were extinguished. Just those ghost spirits alone were enough to give their team a hard time. But Jojo, are you sure that Mu something is Mu Qingya's daughter? But speaking of which, Jojo's intuition was quite accurate every time. Arbor nodded and said firmly, they're two alike. Alike? Emolian was a little confused. In fact, the little princess of a city of shadows really didn't look like Mu Qingya at all in terms of appearance. The resemblance Jojo was referring to was a kind of spiritual resemblance, Emolian thought. She held Jojo's hand and smiled faintly. She didn't ask any more questions. He just had to trust his Jo. Don't worry, little junior sister. Those people won't be able to escape the mystic realm, and they won't be able to run too far. The fat ball rolled over, and the anger on its face didn't lessen in the slightest. I observed carefully just now. There doesn't seem to be a master who specializes in formations in their group. I think they were hiding nearby and spying on us. When they saw that the situation was bad, they ran away first. Let's go into the main control room of Master's Mausoleum and see where they went. Watch me. I will definitely be able to help you capture all of them and vent your anger for you. The fat ball had no moral integrity at all. It confessed all of the big and small secrets in its Master's Mausoleum. Arbor found him more pleasing to the eye now. Previously, they had fought and kicked each other, so their grudges were settled. Since this person in front of him was the disciple of ancestor Tianjizi, then he would treat him as senior brother for the time being. Senior brother Fatty. Arbor's little face was stiff. Lead the way. Okay. The fat ball responded and immediately reacted. It beamed with joy and couldn't wait to jump up and dance. Little junior sister, what did you call me just now? Ha ha, did you hear that? Little junior sister called me senior brother. Chapter 4482. Haha, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Everyone speechlessly looked at this idiot hopping around and poking people with his chubby fingers. The young masters gave him a cold look. Yet Princess Wushuang patted the fat ball's shoulder with great enthusiasm and lamented, "Don't forget to take a trip to the little treasury later." The fat ball nodded repeatedly, saying that he wouldn't forget. The group walked up the white jade stairs and arrived at the tombstone that didn't have a single word carved on it. The fat ball stepped forward with great familiarity and suddenly jumped around. He repeatedly struck the air with his palms. The air seemed to fluctuate rhythmically. Next to the blank tombstone, a small, floating door appeared out of thin air. Come, everyone come in." The fat ball was the first to step through the small door, and the rest naturally followed in a single file. A spacious tomb passageway appeared in front of them. The domed ceiling hung high, and huge luminous pearls hung in rows on the ceiling and all around them. They illuminated the surroundings. 2 rows of display cabinets were arranged in 2 rows. Yes, display cabinets. As if flaunting one's wealth, there was a lifelike golem standing on each display cabinet, or a divine weapon, concealed weapon, mechanism diagram, and so on. There were sabers, swords, and battle halberds. There was a dazzling array of concealed weapons of all shapes and forms. It was as if they had set up a stall, and there was practically no end in sight. Arbor suddenly took out a messenger talisman and used a gold-beaded talisman pen to draw a few lines on it. Then he took out an image talisman and shone it everywhere. "Everyone, you're like a small vegetable farmer entering the city, shining everywhere, sending messages, and taking images. What are you doing?" Everyone's thoughts were as follows. Did you forget that you can refine this mystic realm? Do you still need to shine here and there? You can totally refine it for your own use. Arbor expressionlessly put away the gold-beaded talisman pen and continued walking forward with a rigid expression. Communicating with Duan Yu, Emo Lien asked exasperatedly. Upon hearing His Majesty's name, Rongqing immediately perked up her ears and walked closer. The little stoic, tell him that there are a lot of hidden weapons here to blind his dog eyes. Mo Yin felt more and more speechless. Don't you think this guy is a scammer? He clearly knows that others can't come, yet he still uses such a method to provoke others. The little stoic continued to utter an "in." Do you miss him? The crown prince asked jealously. The little stoic didn't continue with an "in" and only trotted forward with small steps. Just as Crown Prince Rome was about to speak, he heard the underworld province's crown prince say in a gruff voice, "What's there to think about? That guy might be trapped in the land of women and can't get out." Crown Prince Rome immediately retorted, "Nonsense. Your Majesty, please don't be too chaste." "Huh," Ya sneered. "I couldn't tell. With a body full of good looks, he was born a playboy." "Why aren't you reading Duan Yu's reply?" Prince Mo, who was quickly following behind his wife, suddenly asked in a jealous tone. "How did you know?" Arbor was a bit curious. She had already put away the Jade Messenger talisman, so she didn't even know that Duan Yu had replied. Wasn't it strange that the Crown Prince actually knew? Prince Mo chuckled, but his eyes revealed a dangerous aura. "Because this guy also sent me a message. Lien, my Chow misses me. Ha ha ha." Was he asking for a beating? The little stoic silently took out her Jade Messenger talisman, and her eyes suddenly brightened. She was sleepy, sleepy, sleepy. Chapter 4483. Rong hastily chased after him and asked with a smile, "How is it? How is it? Did His Majesty say anything?" "Your monarch is coming." Arbor placed the jade talisman in front of Rong's eyes to let him admire it. Rong instantly looked like the sky was about to collapse, and he actually stuttered, How could this be? Didn't he already pacify that guy before leaving? He already told him not to rush over first and to wait at least half a year to stabilize the political situation before setting off on a long journey. What was Wu Yong doing? Why didn't he persuade him? Sir Jojo glanced at his expression and asked, "Is there some internal conflict in your Sangzhou that needs to be resolved?" "It's not a big problem, but if it's not a big problem, why are you panicking?" The little stoic turned her small head and clenched her small fists. "Don't you know his character? Since he said he's coming, then the matter must have been resolved." So fast? Rong thought about it and felt that the little crown princess's words were extremely reasonable. He should believe in his monarch. Although the monarch was usually unreliable, he was more reliable than anyone when he was serious. They chatted and walked as they followed senior brother Fatball through a spacious tomb passageway and into a side anteroom. "Junior sister, look, there's a pile of sparkling crystal cores and ores in this anteroom. Your clones moved all of them to the little treasury earlier." Fatball turned around and said to her with a chuckle. This guy led them on a stroll. While showing them around the tomb, he also couldn't stop nagging and explaining things to them. Something like there were originally 2 peerless pearls on the murals, but little junior sister's clones dug them away. Something like there was originally a level 15 spirit beast crystal core embedded in the mermaid lantern, but little junior sister's clones dug it out. Along the way, he nagged nonstop. Everyone behind him had long been thunderstruck by him. Only the little stoic maintained her stoic face with all her might, not batting an eyelid. "Junior sister, here. Fatball led everyone into the main tomb chamber. All kinds of wickedly precious treasures hung on the stone walls around the tomb chamber, blinding everyone's eyes for a moment. "Junior sister, this place was originally emptied by you. At first, Fatball even used your doppelgangers as a substitute, but as it spoke, it became interested and directly used you. You have no idea how diligent you are in moving." He moved a little bit a day, every day. Later on, I saw that master side was too empty. I had no choice but to sneak in your little treasury and move some of these things back. Arbor, junior sister, are you particularly fond of these treasures? The fat ball opened its mouth with a simple and honest smile. Without waiting for Arbor to speak, Mo Yin and Yuan Shichun retorted in unison. "Nonsense." Arbor's mouth twitched. He coughed softly and said, "Let's pay respects to our ancestors first." He spoke a lot of nonsense along the way. Perhaps it was because he hadn't spoken to anyone for decades that he was extremely talkative. Oh. Fat Ball nodded with a chuckle and hastily led the little stoic to where the coffin was placed in the middle. Sir Jojo stopped in his tracks and raised his head slightly. He gazed at the pair of graceful jade statues in front of the coffin. They were made of white jade, a man and a woman, each with a long sword on their back. The statues were carved vividly and looked as if they were floating in the air. Chapter 4484. Incense shrines were set up in front of the two statues. Master, Masteress, I've brought little junior sister to see you. Pang Chio walked forward, lit incense, and kowtowed before turning to beckon the little stoic. Junior sister, quickly come and kowtow to Master and Masteress. Arbor stared fixedly at the two statues for a long time before sighing softly. Respectfully, he kowtowed 3 times in front of the two ancestors and completed his worship. When did he pass away? It's been many years. Pang Chio scratched her head and pondered. I also don't remember the time. Master was passionate about the study of mechanisms and concealed weapons his entire life. Before he died, he told me that he had dedicated his life and time to the study of concealed weapons and mechanisms, but he only neglected his wife. Oh, that's right. Pang Chio walked to the incense burner and took out a letter to hand to Arbor. This is the letter Master wrote before he died. Junior sister, are you very familiar with Master's wife? Do you know where her bones are buried? Back then, Master sensed Masteress's passing and vomited blood on the spot. However, at that time, Master was already mentally and physically exhausted. His body was in poor health, and it was difficult for him to walk. Arbor lowered her head to take out the letter and read it. The handwriting was very messy, and the writer's strokes were erratic. Evidently, he didn't even have the strength to pick up the brush and write. The little stoic's face was taut as she carefully read the letter. She saw Tianjizi's letter. I painstakingly studied mechanisms and concealed weapons my entire life. My accomplishments in mechanisms are well known throughout the world. Emphasizing research but neglecting family ultimately resulted in an irreparable mistake. The letter was full of details, such as how she fell in love with Long Xuanji at first sight after meeting him, and how they spent their days together. After getting married, one of them was devoted to the mountains and rivers and liked to travel everywhere. The other stayed at home all day to do his academic research. Over time, they went from talking about everything to talking about nothing, becoming increasingly distant and indifferent. The final result was naturally Long Xuanji leaving in a fit of pique, and the husband and wife never saw each other again. Until one day, when Tianjizi realized that his wife might not be alive anymore, he suddenly realized something after Arbor finished reading it. He directly stuffed the letter in an old fat ball's hand and scolded, "How boring." Everyone stared at her, dumbfounded. He's already dead. Do you think it's useful to reminisce about the past? Little junior sister, this is child's play. The little stoic scolded without the slightest trace of politeness. The two of them aren't young anymore. Wouldn't it be wonderful if they got married and had children and spent their days in harmony? Life can't just be about romance. Naturally, there are countless obstacles along the way. If you can't tolerate each other, then don't be together. What's the point of getting tired of each other? Little junior sister surprise was written all over the fat ball's round face. Little junior sister. Don't worry. Before Senior Xuanji left, her resentment had already dissipated. Arbor glanced at her and said, like your master, she also set up a mystic realm. However, your master was slightly more lenient than her and wasn't as swindling as her. Senior Xuanji swindled more than 20 generations of people. The mystic realm opened once every 10 years, and she used the Xuanji pill to bully those juniors, making them voluntarily hand over some spirit weapons and magic treasures. In the end, she even swindled me. She made me take over her Xuanji sect. Arbor said expressionlessly, since the two of them didn't get along when they were alive, then it's just the same after they died. Chapter 4485. There's no need to bury them together. Let's bury them separately. The little stoic made the final decision. Everyone couldn't help but twitch their mouths. If Ancestor Tianjizi and Ancestor Xuanji were watching from the heavens and knew that this little troublemaker had insulted the two of them from head to toe without giving them any face, who knew if they would be so angry that they would jump up from the ground, press down on this stoic face, and give her a good beating. Junior sister. The fat ball called out aggrievedly. If Junior sister has Master Xuanji's remains, please let them be buried together. The little stoic harumphed. They couldn't even love and care for each other when they were alive, so why should they be buried together and loathe each other after death? No, that won't happen. Master has already realized his mistake. He kept nagging about Masteress on his deathbed, saying that he had let her down. The fat ball looked pleadingly at Mo Lien, He Chun, and the others. Prince Mo strode forward and picked up his wife's small hand. Jojo, they were stupid. Don't be angry. They didn't know how to cherish each other when they were alive and only realized some bullshit life principle when they were dying. Wasn't it laughable? It was simply a meaningless exchange of pointers. Yes. Master has already realized that he was in the wrong. Little junior sister, don't be angry at him. How about you take a look at Master's place and outside? You just take whatever you like. Senior brother will make the decision for you. The fat ball scratched its head and said sincerely, it's just that, Master, when can people be released from this mystic realm? You can leave on your own after half a month. The fat ball looked at her aggrievedly. Little junior sister, you don't want to see elder brother and want to leave right now? Arbor rolled his eyes at him. It felt a bit strange to be called elder brother by an old fat ball with this old senior brother's age. He could probably be a great-grandfather. Although this fat ball looked about 50 years old, he was probably about the same age as Chun Shi, Lu Zheng, and Hao Guang. Are you going out? The fat ball's eyes lit up. Junior sister, do you want me to go out with you? Immediately after, her eyes dimmed, and she shook her head. No, I have to help Master guard this mystic realm. It's been like a day for several decades. Ever since Ancestor Tianjizi passed away, you've never gone out? The little stoic's expression was solemn. The fat ball did not know how it had offended this little junior sister, but it nodded very honestly and weakly hummed in agreement. I think you're an idiot. Arbor couldn't help but roll his eyes. He had been living in this mystic realm alone for so many years. At most, Senior Miguang would occasionally come to disturb him. Speaking of which, the lives of these two old men were really miserable, lonely, and pitiful. Senior brother Fatty, do you have any thoughts if I refine this secret realm? The fat ball was stunned. At first, it thought that it had misheard. Refine? Secret realm? Here? Arbor nodded. It's refined into this state. Arbor took out the realm of misfortune with a flip of his hand and showed it to the stupefied fat senior brother. What is this? The old man looked at Arbor in disbelief with excitement all over his face. He felt like his heart was about to jump out of his chest. This is a natural realm of misfortune on this deserted island. Right. There's indeed a natural mystic realm here. Back then, when Master and I came here to explore, we even fell in. It took us nearly half a month to get out. Chapter 4486. Little junior sister, you mean you can also refine our mystic realm like this? Tian Tuzi paced back and forth in front of the little girl. He was so excited that he wanted to jump up. This way, wouldn't it be the best of both worlds? After little junior sister put away the mystic realm, he wouldn't have to stay in this mystic realm all day to guard Master's mausoleum and also guard this mystic realm. That's great. The fat ball dashed to the little stoic and wished for nothing more than to shake her shoulders. Little junior sister, you can really do this? Won't this affect you? It'll take a long time to refine such a large mystic realm, right? Will there be any problems during the process? Will it cause you to suffer from chi deviation or something? Will it be dangerous? Will there be any accidents? The old fat ball series of questions caught everyone off guard and made them dizzy. It was only after this Tian Tuzi finished asking that he discovered his adorable little junior sister was staring fixedly at him with a rare gentleness in her eyes. Senior brother Fat Ball blinked. Junior sister, don't worry, Senior Brother Baldy. The venerable peach blossom immortal patted Tian Tuzi's shoulder and said with a chuckle, "There won't be any problems for our JoJo to refine this mystic realm. They could even obtain a lot of energy from it and benefit a lot." And Machem, Emolian also nodded with a smile. "It's indeed a common occurrence for JoJo. There's no need to worry. Then Junior Sister, what are we waiting for?" Tian Tuzi was so excited that he completely blocked out Sheng Jiechen's Senior Brother Baldy. He rubbed his large, fat hands and nodded with a radiant smile. "This way, I can go out with little Junior Sister. It's really, really great." He thought that he could only stay here with Master for the rest of his life. He didn't expect that he could go out and see the outside world while he was still alive. He was truly a bit excited. That is, after refining it, everyone in the secret realm will fall out. Xiao Mu knitted her brows. Before that, it was best to find Mu Xiaoxue and the others and deal with them first. The fat, bald senior brother slapped his thigh. "Junior Sister, you're looking for the girl who fainted, right? Come, follow me." Tian Tuzi turned around and led everyone into another side chamber next to the tomb. As soon as they walked in, they realized that the walls and ceiling of the room were all made of special crystal screens. The 4 crystal walls allow you to see the north, south, east, and west. You can see the movements of everyone in the secret realm. As soon as Tian Tuzi waved his hand, the crystal screen in front of everyone blurred for a moment before dispersing into wisps of light and shadow. 2 middle-aged men appeared on the screen, their eyes wide open and looking around vigilantly. Huifeng mining classmates' line cut. The speed of the spirit horse was extremely fast, and they would arrive at the imperial capital of the Tsang Prefecture, the Phoenix Tharch city, within a few days. "Do you know why His Majesty is so happy?" Xiao Yi asked in a low voice while riding his horse. Ing, who was riding side by side, didn't have any extra expression on her cold face. She neither answered nor said anything. She completely treated Xiao Yi, who was beside her, as air. Xiao Yi glanced at her and was about to urge her horse forward when Ying's cold voice unexpectedly sounded. "I advise you not to disturb him. Didn't you see that His Majesty was absent-minded? How could he be happy?" Phoenix Tharch City was right in front of them. His Majesty must be hesitating and considering how to deal with the second prince and the third prince. The state's affairs were too troublesome. Chapter 4487. His Majesty, whom Shadow had conjectured to be troubled by state affairs, was currently laughing foolishly and daydreaming. What a joke, Emolian. That fool would definitely be fuming with rage when she saw his message. Ha 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 ha. Anger him to death. Anger him to death. Who asked him to shamelessly snatch JoJo? Humph. His Chao Chuan had just messaged him, saying that they discovered an excellent mystic realm. It was Old Man Tianjizi's residence. There were concealed weapons everywhere in the mystic realm, and they were of all shapes and sizes. They were a dazzling array that would definitely suit his tastes. If there was a chance, how could he not pay a visit to a great master of concealed weapons like Tianjizi? Xiao Yi still couldn't resist and coughed lightly on his horse. He called out quietly, "Your Majesty?" Where did His Majesty look like he was worried about state affairs? He was clearly laughing foolishly by himself. All right, that Shadow not only had a foul expression, but even his gaze wasn't very good. His Majesty's happy expression actually turned into deep worry in his eyes. It was truly baffling. Duan Yu returned to his senses and absent-mindedly glanced at Xiao Yi. "I heard that you got along quite well with Wu Yi recently. Who did you hear that from?" Xiao Yi was speechless. He glanced at his monarch and shook his head. "There's no such thing." Duan Yu patted his shoulder. "No need to be embarrassed. We already heard them talk about it." "Xiao Yi, what was with this inexplicable, ominous premonition? I heard that when you pretended to be a boy toy in front of Wu Yi, you did that and that with him?" Duan Yu looked at him calmly and nodded. "Don't worry. We are an open-minded monarch. We normally won't trouble you guys too much, and we definitely won't get in your way." Xiao Yi's eyes widened. "What was that? Your Majesty, explain it to me face to face. Speaking of which, we're about to reach the capital soon. Do you miss him a lot?" Previously, Wu Yi sent Miss Wu back to the city first. It was we who didn't think things through and should have let you return with Wooey. No, your majesty, Shaoi only felt like there was a lump of air stuck in his throat. He really wanted to spit at this young monarch's face. What do you mean? What do you mean? Who wants that dead face? Duan Yu glanced at his beautiful subordinate and lamented regretfully. We originally wanted to bestow you a few beauties as compensation, but it seems that it's not appropriate now. I didn't expect that you would actually make the act real. I'm very open-minded, so don't worry. I won't stand in your way. Duan Yu blinked and threw down these words. He saw that his subordinate's complexion was alternating between green and red, as if he wasn't happy. He asked curiously, "What's wrong with you?" "Your Majesty, this subordinate wants to know who is so gossipy in front of you." Xiao, he gritted his teeth and asked almost word by word. "Your leader, Yi." Duan Yu realized in hindsight and asked with a light cough. Could it be there's more to it than meets the eye? If Wooey didn't pretend to be Rong Li and you pretended to be his pet, then the two of you, before Duan Yu could finish speaking, he saw Shaoi turn his horse around and gallop towards him. What's wrong with him? Duan Yu was speechless. Xiao, Kezi said in a trembling voice, I feel like I'm going to kill someone, Your Majesty. Duan Yu pondered for a moment. That's why I said, don't spout nonsense normally. This person, seriously, how could he fabricate nonsense out of nothing? Your Majesty, the Duke of East Mountain's entourage has come to welcome you. Okay. Duan Yu nodded and urged his horse forward. Have the Duke of East Mountain come over. We have something to say to him. Chapter 4488. Outside Phoenix Emperor City, the Duke of East Mountain, Wu Hong, had been waiting respectfully for a long time with tens of thousands of troops. When he heard that His Majesty summoned him, he naturally dismounted and hurried forward. Duan Yu held the horsewhip in one hand and turned his head slightly to glance at the young man behind him. The Duke of East Mountain, Wu Hong, whom we rely heavily on. This is the 8th young master of the Talisman Patrician family, Qi Rue. Everyone says that the 8th young master of the Qi family is almost demonic in his wisdom. Your Majesty is too kind. Your Majesty is too kind. The 8th young master of the Qi family and the Duke of East Mountain, Wu Hong, cupped their hands in salute and bluntly said that His Majesty was too kind. Duan Yu glanced amiably at the Duke of East Mountain. How are things? Your Majesty, the second prince, and more than 700 of his henchmen were all arrested and imprisoned in Lulin Resort. There's really no news from Old Third? The Duke of East Mountain shook his head. How troublesome. Duan Yu massaged his temples. We are a bit tired from the bumpy journey. We will leave the interrogation to you and Little Eighth. Yes. Qi Rue and Wu Hong bowed. What has Old Third been doing recently? Still eating, drinking, and playing around? Duan Yu spurred his horse and left, leaving behind only a faint echo of his voice. Your Majesty, the third prince has been very well behaved recently. He barely leaves his residence and only invites some reputable scholars to feasts and discuss poetry and painting. There's nothing out of the ordinary. Duan Yu chuckled mockingly. He wants to play the pig to eat the tiger? We will completely turn him into a pig. Little Kezi. Oh no, he kept feeling that His Majesty had become very temperamental recently. The Duke of East Mountain turned and cupped his hands at the 8th young master of the Qi family. 8th young master, please help us with the interrogation. It's my duty. Qi Rue nodded with a smile. Please lead the way, Duke of East Mountain. Okay. The Duke of East Mountain gestured. The journey is a bit long, so let's discuss it on the way. This prince also has some matters to consult the 8th young master. You are too polite, Duke of East Mountain. The two of them mounted their horses and led the large group of people towards the Lulin courtyard. That night, Duan Yu summoned Prince Rue, Prince Li of the first rank, and Prince Lu. When my father was still alive, he often said that my uncle and my 2 granduncles were people that I could trust. Right now, we have a very troublesome matter that requires the 3 of you to make a decision. I'm sure the 3 of you have heard about what happened to Second Imperial Brother. Second Royal Brother sent 700 disciples to bury more than 300 heaven-piercing thunders on the 12 main roads that crisscross sovereign capital for 3 consecutive nights. It's said that this firearm was created by the Thousand Secrets Pavilion. I've heard that the master of the Thousand Secrets Pavilion is the power behind the second prince, one of the 3 great families of the Tsang province, the Ho clan. The expressions of Prince Rue and the others changed as they cursed. Ridiculous. The 3 of you. It's not that I don't want to spare second brother's life, but his actions this time have angered both man and God, and the heavens cannot tolerate it. If it weren't for Left Prime Minister Wu Yong and the Duke of East Mountain, Wu Hong, discovering that something was amiss and secretly sending people to investigate and capture those 700 disciples overnight, right now I'm afraid the entire Phoenix Emperor City would have been engulfed in a sea of fire. Millions of citizens would have lost their lives in this sea of fire. How many families would have lost their homes, and how many houses would have been burned to the ground? The hot-tempered prince loose slapped the small table in front of him. Preposterous. This child is simply deranged. If we don't punish him, how can the citizens be angered? Chapter 4489. Prince Li of the first rank and Prince Ray nodded gravely and said in unison, "If this matter is verified to be true, this prince will absolutely not tolerate it." Duan Yu raised his hand in salute and said faintly, "On behalf of the entire city's citizens, we thank the 2 granduncles for their righteousness." A bolt of lightning split the pitch-black night. Giddy up, on the official road, a small team of about a dozen people was braving the howling winds and torrential rain to protect 2 carriages as they sped away. From time to time, the sound of weeping could be heard from inside the carriage, incessantly irritating. "Don't cry." Outside the carriage, a young man viciously scolded. "What's the use of crying at this point? Silang, why are you so fierce? Your sister is also scared." A woman's choked voice came from inside the carriage. "Scared? What's the use of being scared? I already told you guys not to do this. You said it was absolutely foolproof and would definitely succeed in one fell swoop. Ha ha. In the end? In the end, going to Liu Pass was merely a smokescreen, waiting for you guys to dig a hole and jump in. How could he have such a stupid group of clansmen? If he wasn't implicated by them, why would he need to flee the city in the middle of the night? Now that His Majesty has returned with his men, I think we won't have long to live. You shut up." Another young man with a slightly calmer face scolded angrily. "What's the use of you yelling now? If you have the time to spout nonsense, you might as well conserve your strength and quietly wait for the right opportunity. The Ho family is finished." Finished. Ho Silang roared at the top of his lungs. Even though the rainwater drenched him from head to toe, it still couldn't relax his taut emotions in the slightest. In the stuffy air, a trace of despair gradually spread. "Family head," Ho shouted coldly. "You all don't want to live anymore? You're still biting each other like dogs at this time. Continue on our way." Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the silent night, immediately illuminating everyone's ghastly pale faces. Look over there. Ma. Patriarch," someone called out in a trembling voice, and his finger trembled as he pointed over. On the hillside in front of them, a group of armored knights blended in with the darkness of the night. Whether it was the wind or the rain, no one knew how long they had been standing there. Tiger Cavalry. It's the legendary Tiger Cavalry. Ho Silang's eyes widened in horror, and he couldn't help but scream. "Prepare for battle." The Ho family's patriarch roared and raised one of his arms high, but it was hit by a heavy arrow. Caught off guard, the elderly head flipped off his horse and landed on the ground with a plop. In accordance with His Majesty the Emperor's verbal order, the Ho family conspired to create the heavenly thunder and colluded with the second prince to rebel. All of you are now being detained and awaiting trial. If there is any resistance, you will be killed on the spot. The neighing of the horses was intertwined with the sound of wind and rain. In just a moment, the sounds of fighting and crying could be heard. The next day, have you heard? The second prince's mansion and the Ho family were both raided. What's the matter? The higher-ups are keeping a secret. I heard it's a big deal. The second prince's mansion was raided. How can it not be a big deal? A few days ago, I heard that the second prince and the third prince were about to be conferred the title of king and sent out. Why is it so sudden? Move, move, move. Unrelated people, move to the sides. Don't interfere with the tiger cavalry's work. The person in the lead rode a tall black horse and held a long spear that flickered with a cold light. Chapter 4490. Behind them were 2 rows of soldiers who entered the city on horseback. Every soldier was wearing a half-mast tiger mask. When the sun shone on their faces, the pitch-black mask reflected a chilling light, looking a bit frightening. A child cried out in fright, but his grandparents quickly covered his mouth and dragged him to the back of the crowd. In the middle of the tiger cavalry, there was a large group of people tied up like grasshoppers. All of them were pale. Their gazes darted around, and their bodies were filthy. It was unknown if they had rolled around in a muddy pond. It's the Ho family. Quickly look. Family head, Ho's head. Someone shouted in fright. The common people on both sides of the river hurriedly closed their eyes in fright. They saw family head, Ho's head being held on the tip of a spear by a soldier, and his head was hung up like this the entire way. Everyone's palms were sweating from fright, and they involuntarily retreated a few steps. Young Miss Ho stumbled as she followed behind the procession. She and her mother supported each other and cried as they walked. Their appearance was truly miserable. The large family of several dozen people was escorted to Lulin Manor and locked up separately from the second prince's estate. Presumably, everyone was well aware of what awaited them. There were witnesses and evidence in this matter, so there was no way to deny it. The heavenly lightning was created by the Ho family's Thousand Secrets Pavilion. The second prince's 700 disciples were all scared into confessing. The interrogation results were conveyed to the entire imperial capital in the afternoon. It was concluded that the second prince colluded with the marquis's estate and conspired to rebel. His methods were especially vicious and cruel, actually attacking the entire city's common people. His motive was self-evident. Once the entire imperial capital was thrown into chaos, the second prince will be able to make a move. Unfortunately, he was killed by Duanyu the moment he made his first move. This was his lamentable fate. Taking a gamble, wealth, glory, and splendor were right in front of him. However, he lost, so he naturally suffered a crushing defeat and lost everything. Duanyu's order to exterminate the entire clan arrived before nightfall. Duanyu set down his brush and stood in front of the window for a long time. The moon rose and the sun set. Night was about to fall again. The air was heavy. It seemed like it would rain again tonight. Princess, princess, you can't go in. Princess, princess? Xiao Kezi was arguing with someone outside the corridor. A shrill female voice overpowered Xiao Kuz. Get out of the way. This princess told you to get out of the way. Dog slave, don't you understand? Princess Rong Shanshan of Jiankong rudely kicked Xiao Kezi aside and barged in. Imperial brother, I won't marry, I won't marry. What is it? Duanyu's expression darkened as he coldly gazed at this unruly and willful princess. How dare you? Lil Kuzi scrambled into the room. He adjusted the hat on his head and shouted angrily, Someone come here. Princess Jiankong gritted her teeth and suddenly knelt down in front of Duanyu with a plop. Royal brother, please spare me. I was young and ignorant in the past. I didn't mean to offend you. Imperial brother, for the sake of us being siblings, please forgive us. Don't send me to the barbarian tribe. I won't marry that Prince Dua. No, I won't marry him. Duanyu coldly looked at her. You think we are forcing you to return the favor? Am I that bored? Your marriage was decided by the Board of Rights. We did not meddle in it. Also, it is Prince Dua of the barbarian tribe who has come to ask for your hand in marriage. Princess Jinkong's face was ghastly pale and worried as she repeatedly shook her head. Chapter 4491. No, that's not it. Royal brother, royal brother. Princess Jinkong crawled several steps forward and threw herself in front of Duanyu, sobbing uncontrollably. Royal brother, withdraw the decree. Royal brother. The imperial edict has already been issued, so how can it be trifled with? Duanyu flatly refused, his eyes brimming with ruthlessness. Then I want to see Royal Mother. Princess Jiankong abruptly crawled up from the ground and shouted harshly with a contorted expression. Duan Yu even curled his lips mockingly. These days, your mother has been abstinent of desires, abstaining from meat, and reciting Buddhist scripture for your deceased brother. If you want to go, just go. There's no need to inform us. Someone escort Jiankong out. Princess Jiankong was rudely dragged out by 2 guards and directly thrown out the door. Ing, Duan Yu coldly called out. A black figure instantly appeared behind him. Master, keep an eye on that person. Yes. Ing immediately nodded in understanding and turned to leave to carry out the order. Duan Yu's pitch-black eyes stared coldly outside the window for a long time, and he subconsciously rubbed his interspatial ring. Jiankong rushed out of Taiji Palace, only to discover that the rain outside was gradually increasing in intensity. Ever since the blood vessels in her left leg had permanently necrotized, she had to raise her left shoe when she walked, so her walking posture was very stiff. But even though it was raised, it was still bumpy when she walked, and one could see that she was limping when she walked fast. Jiankong staggered to Royal Mother's Runchuan Palace, but she was stopped by the palace servants waiting outside. Impudent! Princess Jiankong angrily tightened her grip on the silk handkerchief in her hand. Ever since eldest brother passed away, Mother had never summoned her alone. At this time, Jiankong was completely grasping at straws. She was too terrified, so she simply didn't think much about why Mother would suddenly treat her coldly. Royal Mother, Royal Mother, Jiankong wailed mournfully, her every word like a cuckoo's sobbing. Royal Mother, why don't you see again? Jiankong, I am Jiankong, your daughter. Princess Jiankong knelt at the entrance of Rinchuan Palace and shouted in the pouring rain. Royal Mother, let me see Jiankong. Mother, Royal Mother, who's making so much noise outside? Wang Shi had already gone to bed. When she heard the commotion outside the palace, she couldn't help but frown and sit up. A palace maid stepped forward to light the lamp and draped a thin coat over her. An obedient old mama stepped forward a few steps, lowered her head, and said in a low voice, It's Princess Jiankong. The princess wants to see the Empress Dowager. Humph! A faint sneer appeared on the fake Empress Dowager's face. It's the middle of the night. Even if I don't rest, the other palace servants need to rest. What a silly child. What's the matter? Can't you talk about it tomorrow? Wang Shi's expression was indifferent. She raised her hand to fix her messy hair. Go and send her away. Yes. The old nanny bowed, turned around, picked up an oil paper umbrella, and hurried away. Wang Shi watched as the old nanny left and calmed herself down. Then, she quickly walked to the window and opened it. As expected, a black shadow suddenly appeared at the window. Lording, Wang Shi hurriedly bowed. What instructions does your majesty have for me? His majesty told you to deal with it yourself. Don't alarm too many people. Yes, this concubine understands. Wang Shi smiled and nodded repeatedly. Princess, the Empress Dowager has already gone to bed. If you have any business, come back tomorrow. Chapter 4492. Where's Mi Hung? Where did Imperial Mother's senior royal maid? Mi Hung, go. Who are you? Why haven't I seen you before? That elderly nanny was unsmiling. This old servant was recently promoted by Her Majesty the Queen Dowager. As for that Amy you mentioned, she should have been transferred to another place. This old servant is also not clear about the specifics. Princess Jiankong was drenched from head to toe by the torrential rain, and her eyes were also soaked by the rain, making it difficult for her to open them. Her only conviction supported her as she tightly grabbed that elderly nanny's arm and cried, I just want to see Imperial Mother once. Can I even see her once? I know Imperial Mother definitely has a way. Imperial Mother definitely won't let me marry that barbarian. I want to see Imperial Mother. I want to see... The elderly nanny heavily swatted away Princess Jiankong's drenched hand and said coldly with knitted brows, Princess, this old servant has already delivered the message. It's up to you whether you want to go or not. This old servant will withdraw first. Come back, come back. If she makes any more noise, gag her mouth, and throw her out. Yes, you dare? You dare to treat me like this? Imperial Mother. Imperial Mother. I want to see Imperial Mother. Imperial Mother MMPH. MMPH. Imperial. MMPH so noisy. Wang Ne ordered people to close the doors and windows in disgust, and no longer paid attention to Princess Jiankong, who was being dragged away. She laid on the bed and maliciously thought, Empress Liu, Empress Liu, you probably never expected that your daughter would actually be sent to the barbarian gang for a political marriage. Even more so, you never expected that Princess Jiankong, who is clearly the daughter of the royal family, would one day fall into such a state of isolation and helplessness in the palace. She thought of Princess Jiankong, who had to suffer the wind and rain outside, and then thought of the 8 people in her family who died in vain. She tightly clutched her lapel and spat out each word viciously. Far from enough. We plan to make a trip to the River of Forgetfulness in a few days, Duan Yu said indifferently inside the royal study. During our absence, we will temporarily leave state affairs to Uncle, the Prince of Lu, to supervise. Beloved official Wu, Prince of East Mountain, you too will assist him well. Your Majesty, the dumbfounded uncle hastily looked up and said, although the second prince's matter is almost resolved, there are still many things. Duan Yu was expressionless. Furthermore, your Majesty has only ascended the throne for a few days, and you want to leave the imperial city? That's not right. Duan Yu turned his peach blossom eyes and coolly glanced at the Duke of Lu, shoving back the latter's you mustn't suggestion. It won't take long. Duan Yu replied indifferently. 10 days is enough for a round trip. Your Majesty, please reconsider. In the imperial study, a group of old officials who had been summoned cried out pitifully. Think thrice? She had already thought about it over and over again. There's no need to panic. The main purpose of this trip is to see how our battle team against the heavenly fate is doing. Duan Yu raised his hand to interrupt the official's words and said aloofly, reportedly, the River of Forgetfulness discovered a rare mystic realm treasure land. Qing has a good temper. I'm worried that he won't be able to win against the other 2. When the chubby Prince Qing heard that it was related to his child, he immediately nodded and said, That's right. Our Qing's temperament is the best. If she were to be duped by the 2 crown princes of the Divine Prefecture's underworld province, she might end up being tricked. That's right. Duan Yu nodded repeatedly and gave the Prince Qing an approving look. Sure enough, this Uncle Prince Qing was one of their own. He understood the meaning of the song and immediately went along with it. Good. Chapter 4493. We plan to go over and take a look. We will also bring along our Phoenix Emperor City's young talents and patrician family elites. Duan Yu patiently guided the courtiers in front of him. Dear courtiers, if there are any talents who wish to go together, you can quickly sign up. The old courtiers quickly looked up and asked in confusion, the River of Forgetfulness mystic realm? Is it really that rare? Rare. We received news that the mystic realm is littered with all kinds of divine weapons and magic treasures. We can casually pick one up and use it as a divine artifact to guard our residence. Haha, he was just teasing you. These must have already been taken by Charles. Mystic realm? What mystic realm? That was his Charles. You believed him just because he said it was a mystic realm. No wonder you can only be our courtiers. In terms of intelligence and wisdom, none of you can compare to our resourceful us. The old courtier's eyes brightened. Your Majesty, if it's really that rare, then we can indeed make a trip. After all, everyone knew the character of those 2 from the Divine Province and the Underworld Province. They weren't good people. Vassal Prince Rome was a cultured, refined, and modest gentleman. Perhaps those 2 would join hands to deal with him. It would be different if His Majesty went. His Majesty wasn't a good person. Either he would definitely be able to obtain a portion of the resources from those 2. Nowadays, the world was difficult and resources were hard to come by. Since they discovered such a rare mystic realm, then they naturally couldn't let the people of Sangzhou return empty-handed. Everyone looked at each other. All right, don't waste your breath. The Prince of Qing immediately made a decision. Hurry home and find several young talents to accompany His Majesty to the River of Forgetfulness. Don't you trust His Majesty's character? Since His Majesty said he would return within 10 days, then he will naturally return within 10 days. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Prime Minister Wu couldn't help twitching his mouth. Why did he feel so untrustworthy? The old courtiers grumbled a few more times before following Prime Minister Wu out in a dawdling manner. Duan Yu instantly felt mentally tired. He sat down and drank a mouthful of cold tea before jumping up. Go. Tell them to submit the name list tonight and set off tomorrow. He didn't want to wait a moment longer. Prime Minister, do you think His Majesty is reliable? An old official who was on good terms with the Prime Minister could not help but quietly ask this question. The corner of Prime Minister Wu's mouth twitched slightly. Actually, he also felt that His Majesty was not very reliable. But if he was really reliable, he was really not someone ordinary people could compare to. In order to comfort his colleague, Prime Minister Wu repeatedly nodded against his will. Reliable, very reliable. At this time, a guard hurriedly came out and stood on the steps to announce what His Majesty had just said. Everyone was speechless when they heard that. 3 minutes ago, in the imperial study, His Majesty was still looking at them and gently said, My beloved subjects, we plan to depart for the River of Forgetfulness in a few days. In the blink of an eye, the departure from a few days later had become tomorrow. Did he have to change so quickly? You're the great emperor of the Tsang Prefecture. Is it really okay to change your mind? When Lord Wu Yong saw his old colleague's doubtful gaze, he was instantly rendered speechless. Lord Wu, do you think that His Majesty might be? That official surreptitiously glanced around before inching closer to Wu Yong and whispering mysteriously, bluffing us. Wu Yong really wanted to tell this colleague. It's extremely possible, old buddy. But for His Majesty's sake, Prime Minister Wu still shook his head resolutely. No. Chapter 4494. At the end of the flower garden, the flying eaves of the pavilion were buried under layers of pavilions. The golden-red setting sun lazily shone on a corner of the pavilion, reflecting on the pale face of a young girl in the pavilion. Is he here? Have you prepared everything? Princess, can we not do this? The little palace maid pinched the corner of her clothes, and her voice was so panicked that she was about to cry. I only have this last chance to fight for my life. If he doesn't want to be accused of forcing his own sister to death right after ascending the throne, he should withdraw the order. Princess Jiankong clenched her pale fist and shouted harshly. She would never marry that stinky barbarian tribeman. That Prince Yua, she had seen him from afar. He looked rough and talked like a broken gong. From beginning to end, there was nothing that could satisfy her. He was a barbarian through and through. Why did he come to Zhangzhou to ask for her hand in marriage? She was Princess Jiankong, the beautiful and charming princess. How could she follow that barbarian and go to his whatever tribe? Princess. The little palace maid nervously pinched the corner of her clothes and rubbed it hard. His Majesty has already issued the imperial edict, so he definitely won't withdraw it. Princess, please don't do this. If you do this, this servant will be implicated and die. Now, in the palace, who doesn't know that His Majesty is not to be trifled with? Princess Jiankong was simply playing with fire. If she really angered His Majesty the Emperor, everything would be irreparable. I don't care. Princess Jiankong shouted coldly. She reached out and pinched the little palace maid's arm. She stared at her with a gloomy gaze and pressed on step by step, repeatedly shouting, Is it now that even you won't listen to me? Even you want to betray me? Do you really want to go and spread the news, saying that I'm faking my death here, saying that ha? A light laugh suddenly interrupted Princess Jiankong's chattering curses. Princess Jiankong suddenly turned her head. A pair of red eyes stared unwaveringly at the young girl who walked in with light and soft steps. Hey, isn't this my good sister, Princess Jiankong? I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've made yourself look so pathetic. Rong Yuhu took a few steps forward with a grin and reached out to pick up a strand of Princess Jinkong's hair, clicking his tongue. Seventh elder sister, what's wrong with you? How did you lose so much weight? If the Empress Dowager saw you, she would be very distressed. Rong Yuhu, what are you trying to do? Princess Jiankong abruptly pushed her hand away and said in a threatening manner, What? Do you think that this princess is in dire straits now, that even you, a lowly palace maid's lowly child, can rush forward and step on this princess? This princess is telling you, no matter how destitute I am still Empress Lu's child. I am the son of the main wife, and you, he was just the son of a lowly servant. What do you have to compete with me? Ah. As soon as Rong Shanshan finished speaking, she was slapped hard on the face. Princess, the little palace maid behind her exclaimed. Rong Shanshan's eyes were almost on fire and filled with blood. She turned her head inch by inch and coldly stared at the woman with the corners of her mouth slightly raised. She raised one hand high, but before she could slap it back, it was caught by Rong Yuhu. Rong Shanshan, do you think that you're still the high and mighty Princess Jiankong? Rong Yuhu put her left hand behind her back. You want to make a move on me with your little skills? Chapter 4495. Usually, I give in to you and tolerate your bad temper because of your mother. Do you think that with that pig brain of yours and your trashy skills, I would willingly stay by your side and let you beat and scold me? Do you think that I would be willing to come and go at your beck and call? You and I are both princesses. What do you have to be noble about? Do you know how disgusting you are? Showing your stupid face everywhere and offending people everywhere. You even want me to clean up the mess for you. I have long had enough of you. Ah, Princess Jiankong only felt a sharp pain coming from the arm she was holding. It was as if her arm was about to be pulled off by her. It was so painful that cold sweat dripped down her forehead. Princess, princess. The little palace maid was anxious and angry. She repeatedly shouted, Ninth princess, don't be like this. Ninth princess, let go of our family's princess. Ninth princess. Rong Yuhu, you slut. You and your slut mother are the same Princess Jiankong only felt a crisp cracking sound coming from her arm. Her arm was actually torn apart by that bitch Rong Yuhu, just like that. Slut? You keep saying that other people are sluts. Why don't you look in the mirror? Who looks more slutty now? Who is the slut? Rong Yuhu pushed her to the fan-shaped seat at the side of the pavilion and ruthlessly pressed her there, allowing Rong Shanshan to look at her battered and exhausted self on the water surface. Just because you were born of the Empress, since you were young, you relied on your identity to bully and humiliate others everywhere. Have you ever thought that there would be a day when you would lose your power and influence like today? That you would live like a dog like now? Princess Jiankong's head was pressed down by her 5 fingers. She had no choice but to lean over and look at her reflection on the water surface. I guess you still don't understand how you ended up in such a miserable state, right? Rong Yuhu seemed to have thought of something interesting and couldn't help but chuckle out loud. That idiot brother of yours fought for power with his majesty and ended up dying a violent death on the spot. Even a shrewd person like your mother doesn't dare to do anything that goes against his majesty. She only dares to hide in Renchuan Palace all day, eating vegetarian and praying to Buddha. Why are you so stupid? You actually want to ask your mother for help? Do you think that His Majesty will let you go on account of your sibling relationship? Do you think His Majesty is like me? When I was young, even if my favorite little snowball was killed by you, I didn't dare to say anything. I only dared to hold its body, secretly hid in a corner of the cold garden, cried for a whole night, and finally buried it. His Majesty found it hard to tolerate you back in Flat Mountain Town. Rong Yuhu pressed her face firmly and took out a blueprint from his bosom, as if he was presenting a treasure. He handed it over to Rong Shanshan. Look, what is this? Do you still recognize him? Obviously, Rong Yuhu didn't expect Rong Shanshan to answer and continued excitedly. Isn't the woman in the painting very beautiful? Look, do you recognize this ferret? Princess. The young palace maid cried out in alarm. She wanted to rush forward, but was stopped by several palace maids beside Rong Yuhu. Rong Shanshan raised her head with great difficulty and looked at the woman in the drawing who was dressed in plain clothes and had beautiful eyes. She saw that she was holding a familiar little ferret in her arms. I got someone copy it. His Majesty has a painting that is 1,000 times better than this. Chapter 4496. His Majesty's painting of this woman looks like she's about to walk out of a painting. It's many times more realistic than this. Rong Yu clicked her tongue and put away the painting in her hand. I saw that you were so stupid, so I came over to give you a few pointers. Do you think you can still wait for His Majesty today? Let me tell you, His Majesty went to Lulin Courtyard. The second prince and his group are detained there. What do you think he's doing there? Rong Yu smiled wickedly. Now you understand, His Majesty doesn't care about your life or death. If you die, he'll marry your memorial tablet over. Whether you're alive or dead, you can't change your fate. Ha 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 ha. Rong Yu couldn't help but laugh wildly when she thought of this. Even the hand holding Rong Shan loosened a little. Princess Jiankong trembled all over and was finally able to prop herself up. She looked at her pitiful ninth sister, who had always followed her, as if she was looking at a stranger. This ninth sister had never dared to speak loudly in front of her. She had always been willing to be beaten and scolded. She didn't expect that she could be so crazy now. Rong Yu. Rong Shan tightly clutched the fan-shaped chair behind her, her eyes revealing a severe expression. You dare to insult the first daughter of the Empress, you still don't understand? Rong Yu suddenly roared, shocking all the palace maids present. Even Rong Shan was startled by her. You are at the end of your road. Rong Yu pointed at her shoulder and poked and prodded. His Majesty doesn't want to see you at all, so he wants to send you far away to the wilderness. As she spoke, she giggled again and pushed Rong Shan down on the chair. She turned her head and called for the others to leave. Walking out of the pavilion, Rong Yu's footsteps paused, and she spoke coldly without turning her head. Stop acting. His Majesty won't return to the palace today, and he doesn't want to see you at all. Tomorrow morning, he will head to the Wang River. As for you, obediently follow that big black bear prince to the wilderness. Ha ha ha. Rong Shan sat paralyzed in the pavilion, her eyes blank for a moment. Princess. The little palace maid couldn't help but call her twice. Rong Shan abruptly pushed her away and stood up. She stumbled and slammed into a pillar at the side. Princess. Rong Yu's personal palace maid couldn't help but look back. The sound of crying and clamoring could be heard, and she could faintly hear the palace maid's heart-wrenching screams of Princess. Princess, will something happen over there? Didn't I say just now? Rong Yu curled his lips. Even if Rong Shan dies, the memorial tablet has to be married over. Besides, how could Rong Shan be willing to die? Her lips curved into a sly smile. Princess, was the painting you mentioned just now really painted by His Majesty? Did you send someone to copy it? A little palace maid about 12 or 13 years old could not help but ask softly. Rong Yu's personal maid turned around and glared at her. Don't talk nonsense. How is that possible? Rong Yu pursed his lips and smiled. It was just a coincidence. She then took out the painting from her sleeve and glanced at it. The woman in the painting has a great background. Oh, Rong Yu didn't say anything else. Instead, she pursed her lips and smiled, putting the painting back into her sleeve. Chapter 4497. She had already sent someone to investigate who the woman in the painting was. Speaking of which, it was really interesting. Who would have known that this supreme emperor of Song Prefecture was wholeheartedly in love with that crown princess of the Divine Province? The little white mink was being carried by the crown princess, which meant this little white mink was probably the crown princess' favorite pet. Rong Shan, this audacious bitch, almost hurt the little white mink. With His Majesty's fondness for that person, how could he allow her to continue being an eyesore in the palace? Moreover, His Majesty's loathing of the Rong siblings had long been expressed in words. Now that the Lu family had fallen, the monkeys had scattered, and Queen Dowager Lu was scared out of her wits and didn't dare to meddle in matters. Only an idiot like Rong Shanshan couldn't understand the current situation. Why was the little white mink with his majesty back at Flat Mountain Town? Rong Yuhu couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she racked her brains. But what harm was there in that? These questions already didn't seem that important. In any case, she had long wanted to remove this thorn in her side, Rong Shanshan. She was the one who courted death, so she couldn't blame anyone else. Green Forest Courtyard. The second prince sat uneasily on the stone stool, swaying left and right as if something was poking at his butt. He couldn't sit still at all. His Majesty has arrived. The junior eunuch's shrill voice immediately caused the frightened second prince to jump up. He turned around in trepidation and saw a tall and elegant figure slowly walking into the pavilion built by the water. The willows outside the pavilion were thin, and the fragrance of lotus flowers lingered in the air. It was a beautiful scene. However, the second prince was drenched in cold and hot sweat. He was sweating profusely and did not even dare to raise his head. This subject greets your majesty. The second prince suddenly threw himself to the ground and cried out tearfully, This subject deserves 10,000 deaths. I regret I shouldn't have listened to the Ho family slander and did such a thing that is worse than pigs and dogs. Your majesty, spare me, spare me. Second royal brother, why are you so nervous? Duan Yu chuckled as he helped the second prince up and gently pressed him onto the stone stool. The second prince's body stiffened, and he found it hard to speak. He only felt that the hand on his shoulder was bone-chillingly cold, as if it had come from hell. It was a ghostly hand made of white bones. The second prince trembled like a sieve. Duan Yu patted him with a chuckle. Why are you so scared? Second imperial brother. The second prince wished for nothing more than to weakly slide to the ground. He'd barely prop himself up and exchange a glance with Duan Yu. She only felt that the young man's peach blossom eyes were filled with a cold and heartless intent. He thought to himself that a young man from a lower star region had changed a lot during this period of time. Back then, this person wouldn't be like this. Just by sitting across from him, he could make people's hair stand on end. Could people really change so much? Have some tea, second royal brother. Duan Yu smiled faintly as he pushed a cup of warm tea in front of the second prince. The second prince stared at that cup of tea and knelt on the ground in fright. He repeatedly kowtowed and begged for mercy. Your majesty, your majesty. This subject deserves 10,000 deaths, but please spare me on account of royal father. Second royal brother, what are you panicking for? Did you think that we poisoned your tea? Duan Yu smiled faintly and looked up at the person who was brought in from outside the waterside pavilion. Second imperial brother, look who's here. Chapter 4498. When the second prince looked up, he met the third prince's eyes, and both of them were startled. Third royal brother, quickly come sit next to us. Duan Yu waved his hand at the trembling third prince with a smile. Both of them were drenched in cold sweat, as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Drink tea. Duan Yu poured another cup for the third prince and pushed it in front of him. He looked at the second prince with a grin. Second royal brother, are you going to refuse us to our face? The second prince was scared half to death, and cold sweat poured down his forehead like a waterfall. Aye, I'll drink. The second prince picked up the teacup, but half of the tea in the cup was spilled out by his trembling hand. The tea spilled everywhere, and only a quarter of the tea remained in the cup. The second prince looked like he was going to sacrifice himself for a cause. He glanced at Duan Yu before raising his head and gulping down the rest of the tea. Third royal brother, it's your turn. Duan Yu pointed at the tea in front of the third prince. Your majesty, second royal brother's rebellion has nothing to do with me. You can't wrongly accuse this official without any basis. The third prince's cold sweat also poured down in droplets. Ever since he was brought here from the estate, he had been considering countermeasures the entire time. The tragedy was that even after he walked into this waterside pavilion and saw His Majesty the Emperor sitting in front of him with a smile, he still didn't know how to save his life. This emperor of theirs looked young, but his methods were too vicious. The whole family's several dozen people were annihilated without batting an eyelid. Now, was it second royal brother's turn? But he really didn't participate in it this time. Could it be that this young monarch couldn't bear to see him stay out of it and insisted on dragging him into this mess as well? Third royal brother? Duan Yu looked up, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Are you going to defy the imperial edict and be disrespectful? The third prince gritted his teeth as he picked up the teacup with trembling hands and drained it in one gulp. He put down the teacup heavily, and when he looked up, he saw that the monarch had suddenly changed into a smile. His handsome face was filled with gentleness. That's right. He smiled and turned to look at the second prince, who was drenched in cold sweat. Second brother, you have committed a grave sin. Even I cannot forgive you. There are more than 700 of your followers. I thought they were all instigated by you, so I killed a few of their leaders. The rest were exiled to the land of thorns by me. When the second prince and the third prince heard this, they couldn't help but tremble. What kind of place was the land of thorns? That would be hell. Other than the endless desert and desolation, there were only thorns all over the ground. There were no other plants, no flowers, no food, no water. The scariest thing was that after being banished to the land of thorns, there was no way to return. There was a powerful heavenly Tao barrier in that place. Although they didn't know what it was, they knew one thing. If you go in, you won't be able to come back. In a land of thorns, anything could happen for a mouthful of food. There was no end to the wilderness, no hope, no light. This was the ultimate nightmare. Plop! A heavy thud landed on the ground. When the third prince returned to his senses, he turned to look and saw the second prince twitching on the ground, his limbs trembling nonstop. Your Majesty! The third prince looked back in horror. Chapter 4499. Colluding with the Ho family to privately build large batches of lightning bolts. Acting out of selfishness, he conspired to destroy Phoenix Emperor City's 12 main roads. We grant him an intact corpse. Duan Yu fiddled with the cup in his hand before suddenly smiling at the third prince. Third royal brother, we will be leaving the capital tomorrow. The third prince's entire body abruptly turned cold, and a chill emerged from the depths of his bones. Old Second took advantage of the fact that he was leaving the capital for Liu Pass to secretly play some underhanded tricks. As a result, Old Second died. The Ho family also died. Not a single one of Old Second's retainers was saved. This cruel and sinister young monarch purposely called him here today to let him personally witness how he dealt with second royal brother. In the end, the third prince was supported out of Lulin Manor. Reportedly, when he left, he even tripped on the threshold, and his entire body was a bit limp. Your Majesty, like a wisp of smoke, Ing lightly floated into the pavilion and called out softly. Duan Yu stood facing the water with his hands clasped behind his back. His gaze landed on the clear water in the pond, and he didn't turn around even when he heard Ying's call. Ing lowered his head and continued. News came from the palace that Princess Jiankong died just now. She died from touching a pillar. Duan Yu slowly turned around and stared coldly at Ing as he slowly reached out his hand. Ing quickly walked up and presented a communication jade talisman with both hands. He lowered his head and continued. Shao sent the news. Earlier, the ninth princess and Princess Jiankong quarreled in the flower pavilion. Princess Jiankong suddenly touched the pillar, and the royal maids didn't react in time. She probably didn't react herself either. Duan Yu curled his lips, and his voice was endlessly cold. She originally thought that someone would catch her, but who knew that she really touched the pillar? The noble Princess Jiankong actually died in such an aggrieved and comical manner. She probably never imagined that she would have such an ending. With the ninth princess's cultivation, if she wanted to save her, she could. Ing coughed lightly and said, Shao also said that the ninth princess secretly hid a painting. What painting? Ing took out a painting and bowed to hand it to Duan Yu. The latter reached out to take it, and a harsh glint flitted across his eyes after a glance. He angrily said, What kind of mess is this painting? The painting shattered into pieces, falling down like snow. Your Majesty, what about agreeing to the marriage alliance between the barbarian tribe and Kawa? Duan Yu was expressionless, but his voice was cynical. There are so many princesses in the current dynasty, just randomly pick one and send it over. His voice paused slightly. From what we see, Rong Yuhu should be the one. He's so scheming and likes to put on airs all the time. I heard that the Prince of Niwa has many concubines. Send her over and let her get along with the prince's wives and concubines. Yes, Ing answered in a low voice. Seeing that she's done so many things, I'm sure she wants to replace you. I'll definitely be happy. Is that so? Your Majesty, are you sure? Find 2 shadow guards to follow her. Don't touch the pillar again. Duan Yu coldly ordered. We don't want to see her again on the day we return to the palace. Yes, tomorrow they will be able to leave this foul place. With a flash of light, Arbor's group flew out of the teleportation array. He's running away again. Mu Xiaoxue is pretty good at running. Sir Jojo lowered his head and looked at the communication jade talisman in his hand. 3 miles to the southeast. Everyone rushed into the teleportation talisman array again. The talisman array flashed many times, and the group ran back and forth about a dozen times. Princess Wushuang facepalmed. Arbor silently took out 10 sets of teleportation talisman arrays and coldly said, "They won't die of exhaustion." Chapter 4500. At first, Arbor really didn't expect Mu Xiaoxue's group to be so good at running like rats. After they ran back and forth to the main control room several times, they missed each time. Arbor silently left Baldy Tion in the main control room of the mausoleum and had him send her a message in time. Then, she led her group and chased after them. The little stoic and Mu Xiaoxue's group were completely at odds. She wanted to see how much resources Mu Xiaoxue had and whether her teleportation talisman matrix could be more extravagant than her. Exhaust them to death. She wanted to see if Mu Xiaoxue's heaven-rank charm master, Luo He, could replenish the teleportation talisman matrix's talisman energy in such a short time. Speaking of which, this Luo He and that Elder Zhuang hid themselves really well. At the entrance of the mystic realm on the deserted island, these 2 people weren't with Mu Xiaoxue's group at all. Zhao Yi, Gu Yishuan, and a few elders from the City of Shadows led Mu Xiaoxue, Lin Miao and that group of old, weak women and children. At that time, their battle lineup really didn't look like much. The appearance of this heaven-ranked charm master, Luo He, was really a bit surprising. In addition to Elder Zhuang, this late-stage, immortal venerable expert, the strength of Mu Xiaoxue's group increased by more than tenfold. Not only that, there was also a formation expert in Mu Xiaoxue's group who had deciphered 1/3 of the 9 Palace Maze formation. At this time, he was still in hiding like a venomous snake in the dark. No one knew when he would spring out to deliver a fatal blow. A charm master, an immortal venerable expert, and a great formation master? From the looks of it, it was quite a big show. What did Mu Xiaoxue and her group want to gain from this trip to the Tianji mystic realm? Arbor waved her sleeves lightly, and countless poison-tailed butterflies flew out from her sleeves and chased in all directions. Following that, the talismans drawn in the void were pasted one after another in the direction of the poison-tailed butterfly. They transformed into all kinds of ferocious beasts and birds of prey in the air, galloping and roaring as they flashed away. Princess Wushuang stood there in a daze for a long time. Then, she closed her mouth slightly. Sister-in-law, what talisman is that? Heaven-level 100 Beast talisman. Arbor frowned in dissatisfaction. Although the 100 Beast talisman produced many ferocious beasts, there were no dragons or phoenixes. There were no particularly strong, ferocious beasts. So how could they chase after others? Princess Wushuang closed her mouth and mumbled, "It's already very good." This little sister-in-law was indeed a ferocious little fiend. The moment she made a move, she used dozens of 100 Beast talismans drawn in the void. Together with the poison-tailed butterflies, They chased after Mu Xiaoxue and the others. Mu Xiaoxue must have had a few hundred lifetimes of bad luck. She had already told her not to provoke her sister-in-law, yet she still had to act like a little white flower. She had offended her sister-in-law. Given her sister-in-law's temperament, she would definitely not let Mu Xiaoxue off. Sister-in-law, do you have any grudges with Mu Xiaoxue of the City of Shadows? Princess Wushuang asked cautiously. Arbor glanced at her. Resentment? She shook her head. It wasn't resentment, it was hatred. Her mother had single-handedly manipulated this great hatred from the sins she had committed in 2 lifetimes. If you didn't properly repay this whole Master Mu, she, Arbor, had truly lived in vain. An icy glint flitted through the little stoic's eyes, and she lowered her eyes and said, Let's rest here first. Chapter 4501. She would let the 100-Beast Talisman track them for a while. Escape? She wanted to see where they could run to. At most, they would run around in circles and affect a secret realm. At the same time, Elder Zhuang, Luo He, and the others were in a sorry state. They had just come out of the teleportation talisman array and were about to enter it again. Luo He suddenly raised his hand and said in a low voice, Wait, what is it? Elder Zhuang asked in a low voice, his old eyes looking around vigilantly. They didn't chase us. Luo He waved his hand. I can't feel the flow of talisman energy. They must have stopped. Everyone let out a sigh of relief. Lin Miaoer sneered. They must have used up all their teleportation talisman arrays. What do you know? Luo He glanced coldly at the stupid woman. The Crown Princess and the others were able to follow our teleportation talisman arrays and come here with great precision. That only means one thing. They must have a Heaven Realm Talisman Master among them who can make a directional teleportation talisman array. Luo He said with a dark expression. As soon as they replenish their talisman energy, the array can start teleporting again. We have to take this time to rest. There will be a tough battle ahead. Lin Jiner was silent for a while, then said, There are rumors that the Crown Princess is an extremely powerful talisman master. Lin Miao couldn't take it anymore. Lin Jiner, I wanted to ask you before. Have you been scared out of your wits by that, Arbor? Why are you always on her side and speaking up for her? You even gave in to that woman and gave her 10 million spirit coins. You're a disgrace to the Lin family. Then what can you do if you don't give in to her? Lin Jiner disagreed with her sister's words. Can you crush others, or can you rebuke them back? Lin Jiner couldn't do anything but argue with others. In the end, she still had to mediate and compensate them. Lin Jiner felt wronged. Did they think she was happy to clean up their mess? She had only lent a helping hand because of her junior sister, Mu Xiaoxue. Stop quarreling. Zhao, he suddenly roared and glared at the two of them. Why are you quarreling all day long? Little junior sister is awake. Zhao Yi, who had wanted to scold Gu Yishuan, hurriedly turned around and ran over. He pushed Gu Yishuan away and reached out to take Mu Xiaoxue into his arms. He called out softly, little junior sister, how do you feel? Mu Xiaoxue felt as if she had just returned from the gates of hell. Although she had opened her eyes, she could not speak or move her hands. She could only stare at Zhao Yi with her clear, snow-like eyes that were filled with anxiety and fear. Zhao Yi's heart was almost melted by her gaze. He reached out and gently hugged Mu Xiaoxue, as if a little louder could scare her to death. He said carefully, little junior sister, don't be nervous. It's okay. The substitute curse on your body has already been removed by Master Luo. The life-reaping talisman still has some effect on you. You can only rest for a while. In another day, you will be able to speak. Don't be afraid, junior sister. I will definitely be by your side to protect you. Mu Xiaoxue glanced at him, and a smile slowly appeared on her stiff little face. If Zhao Yi could look carefully, he would be able to see the disdain in his junior sister's eyes. It was disdain. Mu Xiaoxue was really annoyed with him and Gu Yishuan at this moment. Chapter 4502. All day long, they claimed to be her protectors, saying that they would protect her from harm. But the problem was, did they have that ability? With their pitiful cultivation, they couldn't even withstand a finger from the venerable peach blossom immortal by Arbor's side. Really, what could they use to protect her? They were all boasting. Men were all such untrustworthy dogs. They were useless. If they weren't strong enough, how could Xiao Shui be in such a miserable state? She was like a stray dog, running around in this secret realm. In fact, she had already woken up, but because she couldn't speak and didn't want to open her eyes, she pretended to be unconscious. In this secret realm, they had been running for a full day and 2 nights. They were like wild chickens and dogs that were being chased by their owners, and they fled miserably, pitifully, and in a miserable state as if they had nowhere to go. In more than 10 years, she, Mu Xiaoxue, had never been in such a miserable state. The City of Shadows, Mu family's 4th miss, who had always lived elegantly and calmly, was intelligent, gentle, and knew how to use her intelligence to control and use men to get what she wanted. When had she ever been forced to be like a dog, walking back and forth in this mystic realm? It was as if someone had slammed the door on him and beat him while he was down. Little junior sister, you must be hungry. Come, eat something first. Zhao, he took out an oiled paper bag and helped Mu Xiaoxue up, letting her drink some water to moisten her throat. He then broke a steamed bun and fed it to her. Lin Miao watched coldly from the side and sneered. Lin Zhen'er immediately turned her head and gave her a warning look. Her meaning was very clear. You are now in the City of Shadows team, so you have to hold back your anger. Even if you have opinions about Miss Xiao Shui, don't say it out loud and anger everyone. Why are you glaring at me like that? Lin Miao lifted her foot and walked towards a big tree. I know my status. Why would I say anything about the City of Shadows, little princess that you all love and protect? It's not like I have nothing better to do. Lin Miao rolled her eyes and was about to sit down beside the tree. Just as she was about to sit down, someone beside her shouted, Tiger Wolf Beast! There's a Tiger Wolf Beast! Ah, Tiger Wolf Beast! Lin Miao was startled and quickly summoned her long sword. Without even looking, she slashed towards the source of the sound. The sword slashed at the disciple who was wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf, and directly cut off a piece of flesh from his arm. The disciple immediately burst into tears, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. Ah, Lin Miao, you? Why did you slash me? Lin Miao was also very surprised. She had clearly cut down a ferocious tiger wolf beast just now. Taking a closer look, the tiger wolf beast pounced from behind the disciple and bit his leg. What is it? The disciples of the City of Shadows who were resting all stood up in a panic. They drew their swords and sabers and slashed at the wolves, tigers, and leopards that besieged them. It seems to be an illusion. Fuck, it's an illusion. It was no wonder that when she swung her sword down, she missed, and the sword edge sliced off a piece of flesh from that disciple. It turned out that these tiger wolf beasts did not have physical bodies at all. Luo, he said in a deep voice, Everyone come behind me. This is the 100 Beast Talisman. It doesn't have a physical body. Chapter 45:03. Without a physical body, what should we do? Can we only use all our spiritual power to attack? What will happen if we run out of spiritual power? While everyone was talking at once, their movements were also very fast. All of them gathered behind Luo. Only the disciple left behind by Lin Miao was torn to pieces under the attack of several tiger and wolf beast phantoms. Mu Xiaoxue's face was full of grief and indignation, and her eyes were slightly accusing as she looked at Lin Miao, who ran to her side. Seeing this, Lin Zhen'er's face showed a trace of embarrassment, and she quickly comforted her. Little junior sister, Sister Miao didn't do it on purpose. She was just too scared, so she left junior brother and ran back by herself. Lin Miao looked down at Mu Xiaoxue and scolded in her heart, pretentious. But on the surface, she ignored Mu Xiaoxue and stood silently behind Lin Zhen'er. Was there something wrong with this woman's head? Lin Miao sneered in her heart. Does she think I'm like her, surrounded by the halo of the Virgin Mary, shining with holy light everywhere and saving cats and dogs when I see them? What a joke at the moment of life and death. It's good enough that she can run back with her own legs. She's just a woman who lies there and has people to serve and protect her. What right does she have to say that she's cold-hearted and doesn't know how to save her companions? What a joke. If this woman didn't have so many helpers around her, she wouldn't have to endure this ignorant woman again and again. Luo, he took out a dozen Xian talismans from his pocket and threw them out. Streaks of baleful energy then pounced on the phantoms of tigers, wolves, and other beasts. Everyone's hearts were covered in cold sweat as they stared at the two concentrated forces colliding. Those phantoms of tigers and wolves wantonly grabbed and bit at the streams of energy, and for a moment there was an inexplicable feeling of being evenly matched. On Luo He's forehead, cold sweat involuntarily dripped down. Mu Xiaoxue was burning with anxiety, and her fingers couldn't help but curl. If this situation continued, their situation would really be very bad. Master Luo, I think we should move as soon as possible. Zhao Yi hugged his little junior sister with both hands, and seeing her very pale face, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Little junior sister was really too pitiful. Look at how scared she was by that crazy woman. He couldn't bear to see his junior sister cry the most. The moment he saw her cry, he felt as if someone had dug out a piece of his heart with their fingernails. It was extremely painful. Little junior sister was such a weak and delicate girl. She should be raised in a boudoir and be provided with luxurious clothing and luxurious clothes. When she was free, she should play with flowers and play the zither. When she was busy, she should read books and learn how to write. She shouldn't have come to such a dangerous place, and she shouldn't have met a crazy demoness like Arbor. Zhao Yi gritted his teeth and said, "This Arbor must be jealous of Junior Sister's talent and beauty. That's why he's trying to kill Junior Sister without any reason." Lin Miao'er and her best friend, Gu Yisin, looked at each other. She couldn't take it anymore and said, "Although I don't like Arbor, he's arrogant and unreasonable." Lin Miao'er threw away her sister Lin Jiner's hand that was tugging at her sleeve and continued with a mocking expression. "But let me say something. Talent, beauty, and talent. I feel that the little princess of the City of Shadows is really not comparable to him at all." Chapter 4504. Would Arbor be jealous of someone who is inferior to him in every way? Lin Miao'er couldn't help but roll her eyes. She just thought that this senior brother Zhao was very ridiculous. She said this because she had been disgusted by him for the past few days. Now that she heard senior brother Zhao's strange remarks, she really couldn't help but want to refute him. Zhao Yi and Gu Yishuan had been carrying the useless Mu Xiaoxue here and there, taking good care of her all the time. Every day, they would talk about their junior sister, and the two of them would even fight over her. She felt very disgusted just looking at them. Her sister Lin Zhener was a woman, so it was more convenient for her to do everything. Zhao Yi and Gu Yishuan were just Mu Xiaoxue's senior brothers, not husband and wife. They didn't avoid suspicion and hugged each other all day long. It was really disgusting. Mu Xiaoxue didn't wake up before, so she didn't have the right to speak. At this moment, she had already woken up, but she seemed to have gotten used to the feeling of being served by her two senior brothers. She didn't feel at all that it was inappropriate for a young and unmarried woman like her to be hugged by a grown man like this on his lap. Was she used to being held by men like this? What a bitch! Who knew who gave birth to her? It was said that Mu Xiaoxue wasn't the daughter of the first madam of the City of Light and Shadow. Her mother should just be a concubine. No wonder like mother like daughter. She didn't avoid suspicion at all. Today, she hugged this man, and tomorrow, she would be intimate with another man. It was really disgusting to watch. After Lin Miao'er finished speaking, everyone glared at her angrily. With this slap in the faces of all the men present were all swollen. Especially Zhao Yi, who said that Arbor was jealous of his junior sister, was refuted by Lin Miao'er's words. He was so angry that his eyes were wide open, and smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. "Lin Miao'er, are you looking for trouble? Look at your face along the way. You are neither cold nor warm to our junior sister. Our junior sister doesn't owe you anything." "That's right. How can you insult people like this? What do you mean by inferior to Arbor in every way?" How can Arbor compare to our junior sister? A group of brainless protectors of the City of Shadows caught Lin Myoer and roared at her. Everyone was talking at once, making a lot of noise. Guisen was dumbfounded. Previously, she had only heard her best friend, Lin Myoer, casually mention it once or twice. Now that she had witnessed the blind protection of the disciples of the City of Shadows, she was simply speechless. Today was an eye-opener for him. Wait, how did you find out that the Crown Princess is not as good as your miss? Guisen felt like she was about to die of laughter. Gu Yishuan's face darkened. He didn't give his sister any face at all. Guisen, think carefully before you speak. Guisen was both angry and amused. So, all the men here were Mu Xiaoshue's brainless admirers? Mu Xiaoxue was really something. Do you still have the time to argue with each other here? Luo, he abruptly shook off several tins of talismans, and traces of blood faintly flowed down from the corners of his mouth. He couldn't help but shout angrily. He was fighting with his life on the line here, but these dregs still had the time to fight each other like dogs biting each other's mouths? If you don't want to live, then get out of the team. Luo, he said coldly. No one here has the obligation to save your lives. The disciples of the City of Shadows who were scolding Lin Myoer shut their mouths when they heard this. Zhao Yi glared fiercely at Lin Myoer and turned to Luo. Master Luo, there's no time. We must move as soon as possible. Chapter 4505. Luo, he gritted his teeth and threw out dozens of dark talismans. At the same time, he turned around and threw out a teleportation talisman array that enveloped everyone. Let's go. Thump, 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 thump. Everyone scrambled out of the talisman array and fell to the ground in a flurry. A young man shouted angrily, "You're stepping on my face. Get off me. What's going on? Why is this talisman array so bumpy?" Luo, he spat out a mouthful of blood, his face pale. He looked down at the shattered jade talismans in his hand, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. Elder Zhuang reached out to support him and said in a low voice, "Meditate immediately and recover as soon as possible." Luo, he didn't say much to him. His current situation was very bad. The continuous overdraft of talisman energy had pushed his body to a critical point. If he didn't recover soon, his talisman energy would probably dry up. Elder Zhuang stood up and glanced at everyone, then walked to Mu Xiaoxue and nodded respectfully at her. "Young miss, we need Grandmaster Mao Yang's help now." Mu Xiaoxue couldn't speak or move. She curled her fingers with great effort. Elder Zhuang nodded and apologized. He reached out and took off a blue crystal necklace from her neck. As the spatial container emitted a bright light, an old man in his 70s with white hair and a beard floated out. His cheekbones were high on both sides, and there was a trace of gloominess between his eyebrows. "Grandmaster Mao." Elder Zhuang cupped his hands and said, "Please set up a concealing defensive array here. Grandmaster Luo needs to recover." The old man named Mao Yang's eyelids fluttered slightly. He said with an indifferent attitude, "Even if I put in the effort to set up a concealing defensive array, it might not be able to escape his eyes. This mystic realm has a guardian. He knows the terrain and surroundings like the back of his hand. Do you think you old, weak, sick, and disabled people can escape?" A trace of anger flashed across Elder Zhuang's eyes. "Master Mao, don't forget the oath you made before you left the branch. You vowed to protect the young miss with your life." "Umph." Mao Yang snorted coldly. "I only need to protect young Mississippi." Old man Zhuang was amused by his lukewarm attitude. "Grandmaster Mao, that's enough." Mao Yang sneered and waved his hand. "For the sake of Miss, I'll help you again." He turned around and gloomily glanced at the many disciples of the City of Shadows. The disciples were swept by his gloomy gaze and couldn't help but secretly shiver. This old senior had come out once or twice before. According to Junior Sister, he was a very impressive array master. However, his gaze was so sinister and terrifying that no one dared to look him in the eye. Mao Yang stood in the middle of the crowd and glanced at everyone with malicious intentions. Suddenly, he flicked his fingers, and several polished, round crystals were sent flying into the air by the force between his fingers. A curtain of light shrouded the area and quickly covered everyone present. If someone was outside at this moment, they would definitely notice that the auras of the 100 people present were all concealed in an instant. It was as if all of them had sunk into the sea in an instant and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 4506. Arbor, Emolien, and the others walked out of the teleportation glyph array in a single file and circled the area twice. These people are quite good at hiding. Princess Wushuang looked around and said, "Could it be that they have escaped? They're still here." Arbor waved his finger and caught the shadow of 100 beast talisman. He said coldly and expressionlessly, "They must be hiding in some kind of concealment array. Right here." She turned to look at Emolien. The latter nodded knowingly and waved her hand. The faint shadow drew an arc in the air, like a floating silk ribbon, and gently embedded itself in the air. Crown Prince Rong raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, "This Prince Mo is too powerful." He found the concealment array with just a wave of his hand. Then a black shadow leaped over. Everyone felt as if a few things had flown past their eyes. They were as fast as a few streamers of light. Then they suddenly drilled into the concealment array. After a few seconds, the concealment array appeared in front of them. Mu Xiaoxue and the others were all sitting in the array. After removing the concealment aura, and Wu Shuang and the others saw that Mu Xiaoxue and the others were sitting in a transparent bowl. They were facing a gloomy old man in his 70s with white hair and beard across the defensive wall. Ding Yun and the others could see clearly now. What the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal had hurriedly thrown in were a few seeds. Now, they were leaping up and growing among the crowd, quickly blossoming and bearing fruit. Their branches and leaves were luxuriant as they climbed up the defensive walls on all sides. After the wood spirit had climbed up the defensive wall, fine scratches had appeared on it. There were also a few cracks that were not very obvious. However, as the seeds in the array continued to climb, it seemed as if they were going to break through the defensive wall. The commotion woke up the disciples of the City of Shadows who could not calm down to meditate and recover. They jumped up in shock and hurriedly summoned swords and axes from their consciousness. They charged at the plants, vines, and stems that were crawling like snakes around them. However, these growing plants were born from the wood spirits. As long as the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal Saint power was endless, they would not be able to cut off these things no matter how hard they tried. With their cultivation and spiritual energy, there was a huge difference between them and a certain peach blossom. Once they met, it would be a bloody massacre without a doubt now that these people were all trapped in this concealment defensive array. Their aura concealment had been removed, and their defensive powers seemed to be unsatisfactory. As the array formation's aura gradually weakened, Old Man Zhuang couldn't help but frown and look at the array formation Grandmaster. "Grandmaster Mao, why are you panicking?" Mao Yang sneered. She raised her hand, grabbed a random City of Shadows disciple, and slapped him hard on the head. Everyone was dumbfounded. Arbor's group wasn't the only one who was speechless. The disciples of the City of Shadows inside the array were the most frightened. Had Grandmaster Mao Yang gone mad? Does he even know how to differentiate between friend and foe? Was he a traitor that the Crown Prince and Crown Princess of the Divine Land had planted among them? "What are you doing?" Old Man Zhuang said angrily. Of course, he did not believe that Mao Yang would betray the organization. That was simply impossible. No one knew how terrible the consequences of betraying the patriarch would be. "Don't be nervous." Mao Yang's eyes flashed with a maniacal smile. His gloomy face was filled with a strange expression. "Can't you see that I'm trying to strengthen the array formation?" Arbor glanced at the crazy old man and silently took out the mirror of misfortune from his pocket. Chapter 4507. Master, what are you doing, Master? Master. Zhao Yi was stunned. Zhao Yi's face twitched as he looked at Master Mao Yang, who seemed to have gone mad. This master was too scary. Suddenly, he twisted off a junior brother's head. Immediately, blood flowed like a river within the defensive formation, and the smell of blood filled the air. His junior sister, Mu Xiaoxue, was so frightened that she trembled in his arms. He could feel it, but he could only hug her tightly with both arms. "Don't worry, junior sister. We'll be fine," Zhao Yi whispered to Mu Xiaoxue. Mu Xiaoxue's eyes were filled with fear. She struggled to roll her eyes and used her gaze to signal Zhao Yi to look at the ground. Zhao Yi screamed and quickly ran to the side with Mu Xiaoxue. He looked down and saw that a circular formation had appeared on the ground. Lines of small words were floating in the air. They were stained with blood and suddenly appeared in the formation. "What's that? Holy shit! What kind of demonic array is this? It can even suck people's blood." The disciples of the City of Shadows retreated in horror. They looked at each other with stiff faces and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Mao Yang's actions were too frightening, especially when he tore apart a disciple of the City of Shadows without any explanation. Everyone present was terrified. Just now, they had all seen it clearly. When Master Mao tore apart the disciple of the City of Shadows, he did not hesitate at all. It was as if he was not tearing apart a person, but a chicken. Was it a chicken head or a duck head? Everyone sucked in a few breaths of cold air and took a few steps back. Being in the same team as such a crazy person, the sense of crisis was too strong, because you did not know when your teammates would suddenly go crazy and tear your head off from your neck. Arbor looked at them hiding in a mess inside the defensive formation. He took out the mirror of misfortune from his sleeve without saying a word. He held the mirror of misfortune in his hand and stared coldly at the disciples of the City of Shadows. At this moment, the defensive formation in front of them began to change. As the blood flowed into the formation diagram on the ground and slowly gathered at the center of the formation base, the entire defensive wall began to gradually thicken. Sure enough, it's just as that old bastard Mao Yang said. He's using human blood to construct and strengthen this concealment and defensive grand formation. If the blood source continued to flow into the formation base, the formation in front of him would soon disappear into the air again. At that time, it would take a lot of effort to make it appear again. Arbor didn't want to waste any more time with these people. The little stoic turned her head to exchange a look with Prince Mo and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. Then, she raised her hand and tossed it without any explanation. The pitch-black realm of misfortune suddenly emitted a soft black halo as it floated in the air. Suddenly, it crashed into a corner of the defensive wall and flew in with a whoosh. The disciples of the City of Shadows looked over in confusion. They saw that the bead was so black that it was translucent and glowing. At a glance, they could tell that it was an extraordinary item. He refined the heart of the mystic realm. Mao Yang and Elder Zhuang, who were separated by the defensive wall, had yet to react. When they saw the realm of misfortune break through the wall and smelled the unique aura of a mystic realm, they instantly became enraged, and their eyes turned red with rage. The little stoic casually took out a heart of a mystic realm. What was she doing? Could it be that she wanted to explode this mystic realm in front of them and let the destructive force kill all of them? Chapter 4508. What's this? Several disciples of the City of Shadows were the first to be enveloped by the black light of the mirror of misfortune. In an instant, they were sucked in by a powerful and irresistible force. Everyone was so shocked that their jaws almost fell off. Their eyes were as wide as a bull's as they murmured, "It's sucking us in. It's sucking us in. It's sucking us in. It's sucking us in." Yes, it was sucking them in. Among the hundreds of disciples of the City of Shadows, 20 to 30 of them had been sucked into the mirror of misfortune. "Elder, Elder, save us, Elder." The elders of the City of Shadows were drenched in cold sweat. They were caught off guard and almost couldn't resist this irresistible suction force. How could they save people in such a situation? One of the elders shouted in a deep voice, "Run! Run? What a joke! What could they run to?" The black bead had crashed into the defensive wall by itself, but it didn't mean that these disciples could escape from the defensive array set up by Mao Yang. This was like catching a group of turtles in a jar. The disciples of the City of Shadows scurried away like headless flies. Some of the bolder ones drew their swords and slashed at the black bead in the air. Unfortunately, the sword was completely blocked by a terrifying force when it landed on the outer layer of light of the black bead. The disciples couldn't take even half a step forward. Their hands were numb from holding the sword. In less than 3 seconds, they heard a series of clanking sounds, and the long sword broke into pieces and fell to the ground. "Elder, Elder!" the disciple cried out almost at the same time. Unfortunately, before his unpleasant cries could spread, he was sucked into the mirror of misfortune. As such, more than half of the unlucky disciples of the City of Shadows had been sucked into the mirror of misfortune. The remaining people were all pale. They stuck close to the defensive wall and stared blankly at Master Mao Yang, who was standing in the center of the array base. This master was definitely a person who cheated his teammates. In such a situation, he didn't open the defensive wall to let them escape. Instead, his eyes were red with greed as he stared fixedly at the black bead suspended in the middle. "Aha!" Mao Yang couldn't help but laugh crazily, muttering to himself, "There really is someone in this world who can refine a mystic realm." His malicious eyes looked at Xiao Mu and abruptly locked onto her. Without waiting for him to exert his pressure, Mao Yang felt a heavy force rushing out from the side and dispelling his aura. His eyes were bloodshot, and his gaze gradually shifted to the man beside the little stoic. "Young man, your realm is very unstable." The old man's lips curled into a devilish smile as he sized up Mo Lien without the slightest scruple. "TSK, TSK, TSK." His triangular eyes that were suffused with a cold glint stared fixedly at Mo Lien for quite a while, as if he had seen a prey that he was extremely interested in. Not bad at all. "Young man, there must be some sort of secret in your body. Otherwise, with your age, how could you possibly reach such a level? It's a pity that you're impatient. If you spent 2 or 3 years in seclusion and stabilized your realm, this old man really wouldn't be your match. As for now..." Chapter 4509. The old man suddenly removed the defensive wall in front of him and blasted out a dark purple thunderbolt. The thunderbolt roared, and a large area of intertwined thunderbolts covered Emolien's body. It was like a huge net made of thousands of threads that completely enveloped the cold-faced young prince. "How are you now?" Emolien asked coldly. His body shook slightly and broke free from the thunderbolt net that bound him. Moon Raven suddenly appeared in his hand, and a surge of black fire instantly counterattacked. The man's bone-chilling voice faintly rose into the air. "I'm still in existence that you can't fight back against." Boom! The old man's face darkened. He quickly retreated a few steps and crossed his arms in front of him to block. He suddenly felt a ball of black fire burning in front of him and instantly burned off his 2 sleeves. 2 black marks were burned on his arms. However, with his early-stage divine venerable cultivation base, his skin was not damaged. "What's going on?" A glimmer of disbelief flashed in the old man's eyes. The young man in front of him clearly had an unstable aura. Even if he faintly emitted the aura of a divine venerable, it was obvious that he had not properly stabilized his cultivation base. It should be said that there was something in his body that had caused his cultivation base to soar, but this young man had not properly integrated with it to stabilize it. What a waste of God's gift. Since that was the case, why not snatch it from him and make it his own? Since he did not cherish such a supreme treasure, what's the point of having it? You want to snatch it? Emolien was meticulous and experienced. He could guess what was on someone's mind with just a slight movement in their eyes. Thinking of this, he found it extremely funny. He had never seen such a greedy person. So what if his cultivation base is unstable? He can still crush you, old man. 2 pitch-black lotus patterns flowed in the depths of the crown prince's eyes. He raised his hand, and a black lotus mark appeared on his palm. Suddenly, he took a step forward and flashed through the void like a bolt of lightning. He swiftly arrived in front of Grandmaster Mao Yang and slapped his palm that contained ancient saint power toward the latter's shoulder. "Let me teach you the principles of being a man. If you don't have the strength, don't covet other people's things. Mao Yang subconsciously raised his hand to block, but his heart skipped a beat when his palms touched. Crack! His hierarch realm body was fractured by a single slap. A sudden force threw him down for the sky. His shoulder was covered by someone's palm, and he was slapped down from above. With a loud bang, his face was smashed into the formation diagram. Everyone's jaws dropped in shock. Old Man Zhuang was so shocked that he staggered and almost fell to the ground. Others might not know the level of Grandmaster Mao Yang's cultivation, but he was very clear about it. Grandmaster Mao Yang could be considered one of the top guest elders of the Soaring Heavens Hall. Even with his level of cultivation, he was still slapped down from above by the Crown Prince. Then who else here could stop him? Old Man Zhuang felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't help but shudder. He quickly moved to Xiao Xue's side and whispered to her, "Miss, we can't stay here any longer. We must leave immediately." Ugh! Mao Yang spat out a mouthful of blood. Before he could react, he felt a weight on his shoulder. The Raven Moon sword pierced through the young prince's shoulder and nailed him to the ground. Using your blood to construct this formation diagram should be more effective, right? Chapter 45:10. Emo Yin's expression was cold as she pulled out her sword from his shoulder. Without waiting for the old man to move, she pointed her sword at his throat. "I advise you not to move." The old man's pupils constricted as he stared at the young man in front of him. Just what kind of terrifying power was that? When a young man slapped him down from the sky, Mao Yang thought that he was going to die. He didn't think that under such power, he would be able to survive 2 more hits. Shock appeared in his eyes, and Mao Yang's body trembled unconsciously. Yes, let's talk things over. A wise man knows when to retreat. He didn't expect to meet such a troublesome person on this trip to the arcane realm. Didn't you want to snatch it? Emo Yin sneered at him. She flipped her hand and shot out several pitch-black lotus seals. They landed on the old man at close range. As soon as the seemingly light and ethereal lotus seal landed on Mao Yang's body, he felt a vast force of impact coming head-on. His body shattered like glass, and his bones, flesh, and blood all shattered. The old man's eyes turned red as he spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Elder Zhuang and the others behind him with difficulty and forced out a word from between his teeth. "Go!" Elder Zhuang hurriedly nodded at him. With one hand, he grabbed the heaven-level Charmaster Luo He, who was still meditating, and with the other, Mu Xiaoxue, who was lying in Zhao Yi's arms. With a whoosh, they jumped into the air. Mao Yang's figure suddenly appeared beside Elder Zhuang. He was so fast that no one noticed how he moved. Emo Yin looked down expressionlessly. She saw that the Mao Yang, lying under her sword, was slowly fading away like a piece of paper. The Crown Prince's lips curled into a cold smile. This Mao Yang, in order to escape with his life, did not hesitate to destroy one of his doppelgangers. He was indeed a ruthless person. Even to himself, he could be so ruthless. But in this way, the Crown Prince had spent a lot of money. Although Mao Yang's doppelganger had yet to materialize, it was still in the early stages of materialization. It was possible that it could become a physical doppelganger in the future. But now, because he had to flee for his life, he could only abandon him personally. The old man must be vomiting blood right now. Emo Yin couldn't help but sneer. The old man fled to the center of the array base. Suddenly, he stretched out his arm and smashed it into the array core. Immediately, a violent gust of wind rose, and divine power surged in all directions. It was as if it was going to violently blow this secret realm away. The sand, dust, grass, and trees in front of him all floated up and danced chaotically along with the boundless wind. And Wushuang covered her eyes with her hands and squinted. There seemed to be a huge hole in the sky above the secret realm. A stairway to heaven appeared above Elder Zhuang and the others, and they climbed out of the secret realm. Emo Yin's icy gaze locked onto that divine, venerable realm powerhouse. Without saying a word, he took a step in the void and teleported to the side of the crowd. Without hesitation, he stabbed his sword forward. It pierced straight into the old ghost's lower back, causing him to wail like a ghost and howl like a wolf in pain. He waved his sleeve heavily, brushing away Mo Lien's dark moon. His figure immediately disappeared into the stairway talisman. Lin Zhen'er, her sister, Zhao Yi, Gu Yixuan, Gu Yixin, and the remaining disciples of the City of Shadows screamed in terror as they scrambled to follow the stairway talisman. The venerable peach blossom immortal floated and flew to Mo Lien's side extremely quickly. Chapter 45:11. Reaching out to support his arm, the venerable peach blossom immortal couldn't resist growling with a frown. "You don't want to live anymore?" Mo Lien's figure swayed, and his feet wobbled. "If we don't suppress him in time, we'll probably be in trouble." The venerable peach blossom immortal naturally understood this logic. After entering the transcendent god realm, let alone a major realm, even the suppression of a minor realm was practically insurmountable. Mo Lien's realm seemed to be higher than Mao Yang's. But in reality, Mao Yang, that old geezer, wasn't lying at all. Ever since Mo Lien broke the ancient seal, the crown prince's cultivation advanced too quickly, and his realm was very superficial. If he was willing to enter seclusion for a year or two, that old geezer naturally wouldn't be his match when he appeared again. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the difference between them was like heaven and earth. But now how could Mo Lien be able to calm down? That old geezer had seen through him earlier, so he could only use speed to suppress him, so he might as well use the supreme lotus seal to smack that old geezer down. Sure enough, his actions scared that old geezer to the point of panic. Only by completely subduing him would he have the thought to immediately escape. If he really fought with that old geezer, the longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. The little stoic ran over with a taut face. She tugged at Mo Lien's sleeve and looked him up and down. "Spit it out." She glowered at him with a sullen face. Mo Lien blinked and was about to say "spit what out" when he felt the little stoic's palm forcefully smack him on the back. He immediately lowered his head and coughed out blood. Arbor's face was taut. He moved extremely quickly and stuck 2 needles into this person's body. Without waiting for him to beg for mercy, he reached out a fair and tender palm and forcefully smacked his lips. The pill in his hand fell into his mouth and melted in his mouth. The venerable peach blossom immortal's eyes twitched, and he looked sympathetically at Prince Mo. "Haha, your wife is going to diss you." "Wife, I've already coughed it out. Can you stop poking me with needles?" The crown prince said aggrievedly, "I didn't do it on purpose, wife. I'll settle accounts with you later." The little stoic's face darkened. She originally wanted to teach this person a lesson. However, the most important thing now was to repair and refine the Fectus secret realm. After all, the Tianji secret realm was broken by that damned old man just now. If it wasn't repaired, the Tianji secret realm would be finished. The power of a hierarch was able to tear open a secret realm. It seemed that only when one reached that height would they know some unknown things. Arbor clenched his fist and summoned the realm of misfortune back. The old man left in a hurry and didn't even bother to snatch the realm of misfortune. Now that this matter was over, she had to think about it carefully. Next time, if he were to meet that stinking old man alone, how would he deal with him? From the looks of it, it was because of her that Mo Lien hadn't gone into seclusion to stabilize her cultivation. How could this go on? She must convince him, roar, to submit, die to him, get lost, and go into seclusion to cultivate. The little stoic's face darkened. She sat down cross-legged and swiftly immersed herself in refining. What kind of joke was this? That old man Fecta's corpse was even inside this secret realm. If the secret realm was destroyed, wouldn't that old man's corpse be completely obliterated? Besides, that old man had left behind so much inheritance for her. No one could bear to let this secret realm shatter and disappear like this. It was all that old geezer Mao Yang's fault. What did he do? He couldn't have it himself, so he didn't want anyone else to have it. That old bastard, he better not let her run into him again. Otherwise, Chapter 45:12. Since she couldn't beat him, she could only summon all her holy beasts to gang up on him. Although she really didn't want to do this, she had no other choice in this critical situation. But what did it matter if she relied on her holy beasts to win? It wasn't like she could defeat others herself. With this thought, her anger towards her husband calmed down a little. She was already such a proud person, let alone her husband who was so proud of his talents. When her husband repeatedly fought with others, he also didn't like to summon Seventh Yin to help. After all, people who had reached his level all had unparalleled pride. Once he fought with the other party, the earth would shake, the mountains would sway, and cities would crumble. Look, he could even destroy a perfectly fine mystic realm. It was truly indescribable. The little stoic sighed and thought, then I'll forgive him this time. Why did she feel so unbearable when she saw his pitiful appearance just now? Tianji's mystic realm was much larger than Senior Xuanji's mystic realm. In addition, she still had to mend that hole, so it took her a whole half a day to perfectly resolve the problem. After everyone came out of the mystic realm, they vigilantly inspected their surroundings. Arbor and the others breathed a sigh of relief when they didn't sense that old man Mao Yang's aura returning. Hubby, the little stoic finally had time to educate her husband. Prince Mo blinked, looking like he was humbly receiving a lecture. Go on, wife. Hubby is listening. Hubby, next time a situation is critical, can you shout? I'll release Chio and the others. Wouldn't it be easier for everyone to gang up on them? Everyone. Although the little lady in front of them looked soft and adorable, they felt like her released Chio and the others probably wasn't anything good. When Prince Mo discovered that his wife didn't continue to berate him, he was so moved that he kept nodding, obeying the little emperor's decree. Okay, I will definitely remember. And it was you who said that we weren't fighting alone. Is it because I'm weak that you always like to jump out alone at critical moments? It's not. And Mo Lian shook his head vigorously and pulled his wife into his arms. It's because hubby wants to protect you. As long as your husband is here, your husband will always stand in front of you. Prince Mo reached out and cupped his wife's small face. He looked in her eyes seriously and said, Jojo, you're really strong. Your husband admits defeat. The little stoic blushed inexplicably. Was this guy possessed by a love spirit? She originally wanted to scold him, but strangely, the words that were about to come out of her mouth were all blocked back. Everyone was speechless. Why was it so sour? Why did he feel so uncomfortable after being fed dog food for no reason? All right. You talk too much. Ming Yasi, who was trying to break up the couple, said with a dark expression, hurry up and take a look. Those loose cultivators and aristocratic family disciples who entered the secret realm should have already come out. I reckon they'll find us soon. Think of an excuse. What excuses? Dianyu rolled his eyes. Everyone entered the secret realm based on their own abilities and came out based on their own abilities. What explanation do we still need to give them? They're here. They're all here. As they spoke, a clamor came from afar. Arbor and the others looked back and saw that it was the other aristocratic family disciples they had met twice before, as well as some mercenaries and loose cultivators. Arbor elbowed and Wushuang beside him. Princess Wushuang instantly turned into a drama queen. Chapter 45:13. This fellow took a few steps forward and sang her praises. Aya, you're all out too. Is everyone all right? Aya, I was so worried. I thought you all died in this lousy mystic realm. Everyone, her words made everyone want to hit her. What did she mean by they all died in the mystic realm? Although they had a very rough start, their luck wasn't too bad after they parted ways with the little stoic Prince Mo and the others, and they didn't encounter any especially great danger. They even killed a few spirit beasts along the way and obtained several top-grade spirit beast cores. Princess Wushuang said sincerely, everyone is fine. Fortunately, everyone is fine. Sai, how are things on your side? Did you get anything? Why do you think we all fell out of the mystic realm? We only went in for a few days, but we were sent out so quickly. What's going on? Everyone was instantly speechless. They wanted to ask this question, but this fellow beat them to it. Right, they also wanted to ask the little stoic and the others. What the hell was going on? They were still exploring the mystic realm when they suddenly felt like the sky was spinning and the earth was shaking. Then, they were all sent back to the deserted island. Madame Mo, could it be that everyone also doesn't know what's going on? The little stoic silently stuffed the Fecta heart back in her sleeve and shook her head, her expression even more sincere. I don't know. And Wu Shuang sighed. Sigh, it's really hard on us. What do you think we should do now? We probably can't enter the mystic realm anymore, right? Wasn't that obvious? The mystic realm directly threw them out, and they couldn't even see the entrance. They couldn't even smell a trace of a divine realm opening. So how could they enter, and where could they go? We're really unlucky. Princess Wu Shuang sighed even more. We thought we could find 1 or 2 fortuitous encounters in the mystic realm, but we didn't find anything after going in. All right, did you find any treasures? And Wu Shuang sighed and said, we were really fooled by that old geezer Hao Guang. Before we came, he promised us again and again that there were treasures everywhere in the mystic realm, and we could see a divine weapon when we stepped on it. In the end, we didn't even find a strand of hair. I originally wanted to find a top-notch crafting cauldron for my big brother. Now that I've returned empty-handed and gained nothing, it's really infuriating. Princess Wu Shuang's acting skills were so good that people were dumbfounded. If it weren't for the fact that Air Rong and the others had personally witnessed the little stoic, this swindler, pocketing the entire mystic realm, perhaps they really would have believed her nonsense. How's everyone's harvest? And Wu Shuang hurriedly looked curiously at the group of mercenaries and disciples of aristocratic families. Harvest? Well, just a little bit. A mercenary said naively. I got a high-grade spirit beast crystal core. Princess Wu Shuang immediately showed an exaggerated expression. What? You guys even encountered spirit beasts? We thought there weren't any spirit beasts in this secret realm. Sigh, this is too unfair. Why haven't we seen a single one of those spirit beasts? Did you really get a spirit beast core? Everyone had an awkward expression on their faces. That mercenary said meekly in a low voice, Miss, it's probably because your group is filled with the aura of a strong person. As long as it's not a blind spirit beast, it probably won't approach you guys. Chapter 45:14. Oh, is that so? And Wu Shuang blinked and reluctantly accepted this warrior's explanation. At this time, a person who looked like an aristocratic family elder walked out of the crowd and sized up Arbor's group. His tone contained some doubt. That's impossible, right? You really didn't find anything? These people in the little Stoics group weren't ordinary cultivators. Judging from this group's cultivation and aura, they were all above them. This group of 9 people were all experts above the divine realm. How could they return empty-handed from Tianjizi's secret realm? They must have collected some good stuff, but pretended not to find anything and kept it for them to play dumb. Hey, isn't this the Sure family's elder? Another person said with a smile and suddenly glanced to the side. They saw a fair-skinned, hedonistic young man retreat a few steps from the Sure family's elder and shrink in a crowd without a word. Hey, isn't this the Sure family's 3rd young master, little young master Sure Jinbao? That person shouted as if he wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. Young master Sure, why are you hiding? Sure Jinbao's neck stiffened, and he shrank back into the crowd reflexively. His fair face was filled with suspicious terror as he muttered, It's not my fault, it's not my fault. 5th elder courted death himself. You can't blame me. Seeing Arbor's chilly gaze shoot towards him, Sure Jinbao immediately felt like his soul was about to float out of his chest. The feeling of 1 Buddha ascending to heaven and 2 Buddhas leaving the body was really wonderful. He was so scared that even his legs were trembling. He suddenly yelled at Arbor and repeatedly waved his hands. Don't hit me, don't hit me. I didn't do anything. I didn't say those words either. Crown Princess, Your Highness the Crown Prince, it's 5th elder who courted death himself. You don't like him, just beat him to death. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already rolled from the front to the back. He crawled up on all 4s and dashed madly towards the empty space behind him. However, at this moment, they were all standing at the edge of the beach. The few large ships that had been anchored at the seaside were now gone. Shi Jinbao ran directly from the beach into the sea. He even screamed and wailed as he flopped into the sea. His appearance, as if he had suffered a great blow, caused everyone to be dumbfounded. Everyone's gaze silently gathered on the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess. Their eyes revealed traces of horror as they secretly glanced at them. What kind of unforgivable crime had this evil couple committed? Look at how frightened that little young Master Shi was. He jumped straight into the sea and seemed to have gotten sick from the fright. Arbor was baffled. He looked up at Mo Lien, then at Crown Prince Rong, Ming Yasi, and Ding Yan. Who is he? The corners of Wu Shuang's mouth twitched. She still had some impression of Shi Jinbao, the capital's foppish son who used to hang out with the heir of the old Wang family of Giant Pain and the other foppish sons of the capital's aristocratic families. He spent all his time walking birds and playing with dogs, never doing anything serious. He's the little foppish son of the Shi family's second son, Shi Jinbao. Sister-in-law, you should have met him before. He usually hangs out with the son of the Wang family of Giant Pain. Arbor shook his head decisively. I don't know him. He was so ugly. How could Sir Jojo recognize him? Chapter 45:15. This time, it was in Wu Shuang's turn to be startled. Lil's sister-in-law said she didn't know Shi Jinbao in a resolute and decisive manner. It was clear that she really didn't have the slightest impression of Shi Jinbao. But judging from Shi Jinbao's appearance, it seemed like he had been greatly provoked by the little crown princess. It didn't seem like he hadn't interacted with her before. Arbor glanced at her husband in confusion. What did you do? What did your husband do? The crown prince blinked his phoenix eyes innocently at her to express goodwill. I didn't do anything. Then why did he look like he saw a ghost when he saw you just now? Arbor pursed her lips in disdain. You don't look like a decent person with fair skin and fair flesh. Everyone, by this time, that fifth elder of the Shi family had already gone up with a flushed face and brought back young Master Shi Jinbao, who was thrashing about in the sea, with 3 to 5 brawny men in tow. Young Master, young Master. The fifth elder of the Shi family shouted louder and louder. When he saw that Shi Jinbao's eyes were still abnormally terrified as he desperately waved his hands, his voice became a bit shrill. Let go of me, let go of me. Crown Princess, spare me. Crown Princess, spare me. Everyone silently turned to look at the little Crown Princess. The little fellow was instantly enraged. She remembered very clearly that she had never seen this wastrel before. What did he mean by looking like she had harmed him? Did he think that the little Crown Princess had been wronged? When Mo Lien saw her wife rolling up her sleeves and looking like she wanted to go up and kick Shi Jinbao a few times, she couldn't help but raise her hand to cover her forehead. She hastily pulled the bouncing little stoic to her side and stroked her head placatingly. Wife, ignore him. What's there to pay attention to a lunatic? He won't dirty your feet. Look at his weakling appearance. Why would I let him off? Who wants his lousy life? The little stoic became angrier as she spoke. I've long ignored that bunch of smelly bugs from the Shi family. Who is he putting on such an act for today? Who are you trying to malign? She really did not expect that there would be a little white flower among men. Today, she was going to trample this little white flower to death. Let's see if he still pretended to be a weakling. What was he pretending to be in front of Miss Qiao? And Wu Shuang's lips twitched, and she exchanged a look with third young Master Fu. Why not? Princess Wu Shuang had a strange premonition. She felt that Shi Jinbao, this little pitiful girl, must have been severely frightened by the young crown prince consort in the past. However, the tragedy was that the young crown prince consort had probably completely forgotten a minor character like him. But she didn't torture him back then. She must have tortured this young Master Shi until he went crazy every time he saw the crown princess. His expression would change on the spot. He had to admit that Princess Wu Shuang was right. The extent of young Master Shi's tragic state was really not to be underestimated. He still remembered that in the despondent pavilion, as one of the profligate sons, he didn't fear death, and publicly took liberties with the crown princess. In the end, the little crown princess sent him flying into the sky with a fire explosion talisman. It was over, but this was not the end. It was only later that he found out that being blown up by the crown princess might not even be considered a big deal. The most frightening thing was that His Highness the Crown Prince ordered people to pack him up overnight and send him directly to a brothel, making him enjoy the life of a prostitute for 3 months. After he was released, young Master Sure could be said to have been completely crippled. Later on, whenever he saw a slightly stronger woman, he would uncontrollably shudder and scurry away like a rat. How could he still cause trouble for others? Chapter 45:16. One could only imagine how traumatized this incident was for little young Master Sure. Sure Jinbao had already noticed the presence of the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess at the entrance of the Mystic Realm. He had been hiding himself well in the crowd, trying his best not to show his face or make a sound in front of them. Little did he expect that this foolish elder of his would step out of the crowd to argue with the little Crown Princess and her entourage. Treasures or not, they were all worldly possessions. He would not bring them with him when he was born, and he would not bring them with him when he died. Right now, he only wanted to preserve his little life. Little young master. Fifth Elder was so angry that he could not care less about seniority. He slapped the back of Sure Jinbao's head to wake him up. Sure Jinbao shuddered from head to toe. When he noticed Crown Prince Mo's oppressive gaze, he seemed to have realized something and retreated a dozen steps. He shouted repeatedly, "I'll scram right now, scram right now. What are you all waiting for? Cut the crap and go back, go back." Sure Jinbao punched the fifth patriarch's shoulder and roared at the few Sure Clan disciples. He kicked them into the back of the crowd. Emol Yin held onto Arbor. Otherwise, she would have gone up and kicked this crazy young master a few times. Was he a fucking retard? Sir Jojo did not have the time to bicker with him. Besides, was she that scary? He was so scared by her that he jumped into the sea. What was wrong with him? Second Sect Master. Hao Guang's excited voice came from behind. Everyone looked back and saw that old man, scattered light, sprinting toward Xiao Mu while flailing his arms and legs in joy. Just as he was about to pull her arm, Emol Yin, who was standing to the side, blocked him with one arm. The old man was not happy. He glared at Emol Yin and shouted, "Second Sect Master, it's great that you're fine. Your safe return is better than anything else. Second Sect Master, how are you? We're all fine. Those brats are in the Karst Cave, meditating and practicing Qi every day. What can happen to them?" However, not long after you left, many old and weak women and children came to the island. I thought their ragged clothes were rather pitiful to wander about for so many days without a fixed abode, so I let them all stay. Since there are so many people on this deserted island, adding a few more people won't be a big problem. Oh, Arbor mercilessly ended the conversation. Scattered light. What was wrong with the second-generation sect leader? Didn't he spend a lot of effort to say such a long sentence? Why did he just reply with an O? Now that this matter is settled, I plan to settle the soldiers of the 3 prefectures here for the time being. Arbor nodded in satisfaction as he sensed the divine aura coming from all around him. Although this is just a deserted island, I feel that the divine power is quite dense. It's really not bad to use it as a training ground. That's good. There's a large open space behind the snow mountain. When the time comes, they can build houses and tents if they want. Let the group of soldiers make their own nest. Arbor nodded slightly. By the way, those people you mentioned, where are you going to settle them now? Whoosh whoosh. A few air-piercing sounds suddenly passed by. One of the arrows immediately pierced through the arm of an itinerant cultivator, causing half a howl. Emol Yin turned to look and saw a large number of murlocs crawling out of the sea. It's already 4 o'clock today. I'm having a headache. Chapter 45:17. Arbor's eyes immediately darkened, and his gaze locked onto the large group of mermen that swam ashore. These guys were all dressed in the same uniform. They were all wearing thin black armor woven from merman silk and carrying a long, large bow on their backs. In Arbor's eyes, they were no different from a large group of zombies that crawled ashore. He felt an inexplicable sense of panic. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Arrows continuously shot toward the crowd. The leading merman had brownish-yellow eyes, and his roar shook the sky. Quick, bring them out immediately. Kill anyone who resists. Princess Wushuang frowned. It seems like these mermen aren't here for us. Arbor stared at them coldly. Regardless of why they're here, they can go to hell for daring to shoot arrows at this crown princess. Second faction master, do you want to throw the godly powerballs? Mi Guang suddenly took out a storage bag from his pocket and poured out a dozen godly powerballs, stuffing them all at Arbor. Throw them, second faction master. Everyone. Senior Mi Guang really spared no effort to lead their second faction master down the crooked path of the fiery little stoic. If it doesn't work, we'll drop spirit artifacts. Mi Guang looked at his little faction master expectantly. Don't panic, second faction master. There are too many things that can be dropped. Just drop whatever you want. Arbor glanced at him and stared at him with his pitch-black eyes for a moment. He silently took a handful of godly powerballs that the old man presented. He quickly flicked 3 of them with his fingers, and the godly powerballs flew toward the group of mermen with a whoosh. Get out of the way, the merman leader shouted angrily. The mermaids and mermen instantly scattered in all directions. Some of the more timid ones even jumped into the sea to hide. After a few explosions, the seawater nearby was blasted into pieces of snow by the divine powerball, revealing a few large pits that were neither too deep nor too shallow. Several mermen who didn't have time to dodge were directly blasted into the sea. A merman hiding in the sea just wanted to poke his head out to see what was going on, but he was hit in the face by a body of a merman flying through the air. He immediately closed his eyes and fainted. Xiaomu's pitch-black eyes stared at that merfolk leader as she raised both hands at the same time. The leader of the mermen was so scared that his soul almost flew out of his body. He hurriedly shouted, "Stop! Stop it!" Hao Guang lowered his head and rummaged through the storage bag. To be honest, ever since he was trapped in the Thousand Cave for a few months, Senior Finelight had been obsessed with creating spatial equipment. These storage bags were big and small, and they were all made by him alone. There were many things in them. The great artifact maker, Senior Scattered Light, couldn't help but shed tears of sympathy for him when he thought of his own experience back then. Then, he looked at himself from head to toe. Even in his sleeves, there were several storage bags. It couldn't get any better. There were many necessary items in the storage bag for tricking people. Senior Finelight decided to take them all out for the little Supreme Leader to use. But the problem was, why did those mermen stop when the second Supreme Leader threw a few godly powerballs over? Didn't the battle just start? Wasn't the tempo a little too fast? What a bunch of cowards. Senior Finelight couldn't help but twitch his mouth and continue rummaging through the storage bag. Second Supreme Leader, don't argue with them. This guy had been spreading rumors in front of the little Supreme Leader. Chapter 45:18. Who told them to pretend to be big shots in front of us just now? Second Sect Master, continue blasting. Don't be polite with them. This light really wanted to see the world plunged into chaos. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at the old man speechlessly and said in a low voice, "Jojo, why don't we ask them why they're here?" He felt that this group of mermen didn't seem to have come to this deserted island for Jojo. And from the looks of it, these people didn't seem to recognize Jojo at all. You humans, don't be too arrogant. The young merman in the lead had a handsome face and very fair skin. A trace of hatred flashed through his brown-yellow eyes. He comforted himself that he wasn't afraid of this little stoic who threw divine powerballs at the team at the drop of a hat. He just didn't want his team to make unnecessary sacrifices. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. So, what if we're arrogant? What can you do about it? A stinky salted fish was still a salted fish no matter how you flipped it. Xiao Mu's eyes turned extremely sinister in the blink of an eye. When a merman in the lead saw her frosty gaze, he couldn't help but shudder with apprehension. The The little girl's aura didn't seem like an ordinary person. I'm Hazza, the commander of the royal guard of the mermen of the Forgotten River Dragon Clan. Who are you humans? And why are you near our sacred land of the Snow Ridge? The sacred land of the Snow Ridge belongs to your family? And Wushuang retorted exasperatedly. We come and go as we please. What does it have to do with you? Commander Hazza glanced coldly at Wushuang. He gripped the large bow in his hand and said, If you're guests of the Forgotten River, then please move to the Forgotten River clan's territory and register. Otherwise, Arbor didn't wait for him to finish speaking and threw out several divine power balls with her left hand. The surrounding itinerant cultivators, mercenaries, and aristocratic family disciples couldn't help but feel heartache. They thought, why don't you let this guy finish speaking first? We have to see if there's a chance to reconcile with them. There's no explanation now, and you're just blindly throwing divine power balls. These aren't ordinary mystic power balls. These are priceless divine power balls. It was such a waste of resources. You simply don't know how to cherish it. Arbor didn't understand why the people around him looked so heartbroken, as if the sky was falling. Wasn't everything fine now? The situation was already under her control. The group of fishmen were repeatedly bombarded by the divine power balls. They only dared to hide in the sea and did not dare to approach the shore. Why were they panicking? Emolien couldn't help but twitch her mouth. He silently admired the expression on his wife's face. He didn't even need to guess to know what the little fellow was thinking. She must be very speechless, thinking in her heart, why are you panicking? I didn't even panic when I turned the tide. You guys are just hiding behind me, enjoying the scenery. What are you guys panicking for? When that group of fishmen charged forward, this Chow would be in front of them to block them. He had no sense of responsibility at all. Did he even look like a mercenary? Did he even look like a man? You're simply throwing away the face of your parents. If I were your parents, I would use my shoe to whip you useless things to death. A bunch of weaklings, cowards, treasures, you guys are too weak. Arbor said expressionlessly. Such a small scene made you guys look like you're about to collapse. You're not manly at all. The itinerant cultivators and mercenaries were dumbfounded. Chapter 45:19. The venerable peach blossom immortal winked mockingly at Prince Emo. Look, my Jojo is making fun of me again. Prince Emo threw him an expressionless emoji. The little stoic simply didn't understand why other people looked like they were about to collapse. The thoughts running through her mind right now were in a completely different world from everyone else's. She thought that other people were panicking and collapsing when they saw so many mermen. Who knew that other people were collapsing from heartache when they saw her throw the divine power balls? What are you panicking for? Arbor's gaze landed on that fat uncle from the Fey mercenary group. Throw a few more divine power balls at them and have them all scram. The members of the Fey mercenary group all revealed expressions of unbearable heartache as they watched the little girl throw away the remaining divine power balls with a wave of her hand. She threw them out so casually, completely not caring whether the divine power balls fell into the sea or caused serious damage to the merman. She simply didn't care whether they hit anyone or not. Even if it was a bag of divine power balls she picked up for free, she couldn't waste it like this. Hazza turned around in exasperation and looked at the scarlet surging to the surface of the water. Many of the mermen hiding in the sea were injured, and the bottom of the water was also dyed red. You humans, are you really going to stop us from going ashore? You want to become the enemy of our river of forgetfulness? We're already enemies. Arbor coldly interrupted Hazza with an impatient expression. Scram back and tell your clan leader that I'm expropriating this empty, barren island. Since the River of Forgetfulness Dragon Clan dares to trespass on this island, don't blame me for ruthlessly slaughtering you. Hazza's face flushed red, as though he was very dissatisfied with Arbor's wanton and icy attitude. Who are you? Why are you so hostile to our River of Forgetfulness Merman clan? What a hothead. Arbor glanced at him coldly, and a bough made from twining wooden vines suddenly formed in his hand. A jade-green arrowhead abruptly appeared and coldly aimed at the other party. Hazza's entire body trembled slightly, and he couldn't understand why a trace of panic would emerge in his heart. Suddenly, he shouted, "I am." It was the royal guard. "Haza! You, what are you trying to do? You? What's wrong with you?" "Leader." The mermen who poked their heads out of the water all opened their eyes wide and roared in horror. "Why aren't you running?" Young Master Ding glanced at Hazza with a faint smile. "If you don't run now, you won't have a chance." Hazza suddenly put down his pride and dignity and plunged into the sea. At the same time, Arbor released a wood spirit arrow, which pierced through the air and shot toward where Hazza was standing. The arrowhead flew so fast that everyone could only see a dark green afterimage fly past their eyes. In an instant, it fell into the sea with a swoosh sound. Bang! A huge splash of water splashed out as divine power shot out in all directions. A stream of water spirit was smashed in a fine powder, splashing onto the fleeing mermaids and mermen. Ah! Ah! Blood-curdling screams came from all directions. Even though the group of mermen had already applied defensive artifacts on their bodies, they still felt pain all over their bodies from being smashed by the pearl-like water spirit. All the places that were hit by the water splashes were red and swollen at this moment. Little red dots appeared all over his body from the splashes of the water splashes, one after another. It was too fucking painful. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.